What's up, everybody? I'm Jeremy, and I big time goofed tonight. Weren't supposed to start till 9, so who knows how many people are actually going to show up here at 8, since it's not supposed to be till 9. But I do apologize ahead of time. If you're watching this on the replay, you don't know any different then. But we will have Riley Jimison of Riley's Reptiles joining us here in roughly probably a half hour, 45 minutes, something like that, hopefully. We were supposed to be starting at 9, like I said, but I goofed. 8 p.m.'s just programmed into my head. So yeah, we were backstage talking. It's like, wait a second. It's like, we're like an hour early.
Yeah, but there's people in the chat already. See,
there is. Yeah, like this is like everybody else is pre-programmed too, I guess. John, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, everybody. John is one of our YouTube members. So if you'd like to take a look at how to become a YouTube member, click the link in the description down below. Check it out. There's a couple different tiers. Each tier gets you some different perks. Top tier gets you all the perks like shirts, discounts on animals, first access to animals when they become available, that type of deal. So check it out. And the members is only live stream once a month. So John, actually, the next members live, dude, is I need to post it in our little group chat thing for the members, but it's the 11th at 10, and I will stick to 10 o'clock on that one. Jason, Earl's Exotics, what's up? Thanks for tuning in, dude. Good to see you. So everybody, do me a favor. Please hit that thumbs up for me before we get this thing started. Also, Nathan's information and Eric's information is in the description down below. Please go check them out. Give them a follow on all their social media platforms. And even most of all, Eric's got a YouTube channel, NPR. Actually, is NPR like a combined thing between several people, Eric? Or how
yeah. So Morelia Python Radio was the original podcast that we did all the way back since 2011. And then we, a couple years ago, we added a bunch of other people, and then we decided to make it sort of a network. So yeah, so Reptile Fight Club, Carpets and Coffee, trying to think what else, the Australian Herpetoculture podcast, the Monitor Keeping podcast, Boas. I know I'm forgetting some. There's so many.
I know there's a lot of information all in that one.
Colubrid and Colubroid, yeah.
I thought there's Colubrids in there, but there's a lot of information, folks, in just the Morelia Python Radio YouTube channel. So go check that out. All right, now I might have goofed on that as well. Let me just double check here real quick, because I'm curious, and this might bring up
you probably put E.B. Morelia.
I was gonna say, I wonder if I didn't. Yeah, I think I just put E.B. Morelia's YouTube on there. So everybody, I will make sure I edit this to include Morelia Python Radio's link in there as well, because that is a super informative YouTube channel. It's just Carpets and Coffee. If you're into carpet pythons, that's the place you need to be Friday nights. Crap ton of information, and it's always a blast to watch everybody on there, because everybody's just got great chemistry on that. So I do want to let you know that, Eric.
Appreciate it.
Let's see here. We got Jeremy and Holly, Snakes with Memories. What's up? Thanks for tuning in. Yes, Jason says you won't be disappointed. Many years of great podcasts. Yes.
Thanks, Jason.
And I've just recently started tuning in, and I'm already hooked on it. So everybody, make sure you go check out NPR. Excuse me, I shouldn't have drank that soda. Nathan, a lot of people know you. Give us a quick little spiel about you, who you are, before we dive into this, and then we'll do the same thing with Eric. But let's hit you first.
Well, for those who don't know me, we're ball python breeders mainly. We do keep some other species. We do have a carpet, hopefully a pair at some point. We do have a boa. We do have some corn snakes, some sand boas. bamboo rat snakes. So we have a handful of other stuff, but the bulk of what we do is ball pythons. And we're based out of Pipersville, Pennsylvania. And yeah, I mean, that's been at this a handful of years now.
And you forgot the branding needs, man. The branding needs. You're the branding.
So my full-time job is I own a company, Design Star 3. We basically do design through production of anything trade show related, signage, clothing,
nice.
paper products, basically anything marketing related, any type of marketing product, or full design of trade show booths where the bulk of our business is. We handle all of that. So, you know, for any of you guys that do shows, that's kind of our specialty. Jeremy can speak to that. I mean, we've done, whether it be back walls, retractable banners, tablecloths, all of that stuff you use at shows. We've been helping out, you know, all the other breeders who've been asking. So we're always here for that too. Always here to lend some help with branding or business information or business coaching stuff.
And everybody, just so you're aware, I do have Nathan booked coming up to be going over just basically a whole branding episode in the near future. It'll actually be the day after Gettysburg Reptile Expo.
Right, because he picked a great day, one day after I have to work. Thanks, Jeremy.
We all have to work that day.
Is that one at 8 or is that at 8 or 9? Do you know that?
that will be at 8.
All right, I'll be there at 9.
We all know I can bullshit for a good hour by myself. You show up whenever you want to, David. Don, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. So, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself too, because this is the first time for you being on the show. So definitely, unless anybody's familiar with E.B. Morelia or MPR, they don't know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been in the reptiles basically all my life. Probably when I hit my 20s, I sort of got out of reptiles and did music. I did that until I was about 30s, mid 30s. And then I got the house and I said, oh, let me get back into reptiles. And, you know, it's completely different at that point. Again, I think when I was getting into it, I was going to go into the ball python world because that was sort of what was up and coming or hot. But I felt like if I did that, I would just be following people my entire breeding career rather than, you know, trying to set the trend, so to speak. So by accident, I stumbled upon carpet pythons, and yeah, I have been infatuated with carpet pythons ever since. That led me to do the podcast, Morelia Python Radio, in 2011, and we've been doing it since then. You know, just to try to get information about carpets and green trees, because there's so much misinformation out there, and people don't understand what they're about. And it's kind of complicated, especially when you're coming from ball pythons, where if you breed morph X to morph X, you're still going to have a ball python. Sometimes with carpets, that doesn't work. You have subspecies and species and localities and all this different stuff that can, you know, once you understand it, it's okay. But to come from the ball python world to the carpet python world, well, you probably can relate to that.
It is a walking into from ball pythons to learning the carpet python aspect. It is like learning a whole new language. It's because it's not morph based anymore. It's like more locality based, and mixing localities depending which side of the fence you're on is a big no.
Yep.
And you know, it's just a completely different world. And the sad thing is, and I don't know your thoughts on this, Eric, but like the jungle jags, like that is one of the most beautiful carpet pythons.
Oh, no doubt.
I think that you can hit.
Yeah.
But that's a very controversial cross at the same time, which sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, usually that's the way it goes. The really cool ones are the ones that are, you know, something's either wrong with it or you're crossing some kind of thing. But yeah, I did NPR ever since. We started an event called Carpet Fest in 2012. Obviously, COVID kind of stopped that for a bit. And I guess over 2018 is when I finally decided to go to Australia and go herping over there and find carpets in the wild and pythons and whatnot. And now I'm kind of addicted to that whole thing. Funny thing is like you kind of don't appreciate what's in your own backyard a lot of times. And when I think we were literally a day away from leaving for Western Australia and they shut everything down for COVID. So we decided to go to some of the iconic herping places in the U.S. We went to West Texas. We've been to Arizona, Southern California. We're going to Utah in May to check that out. Obviously, we did the Pine Barrens and all the local stuff around here. Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of got into that. Obviously, that kind of changes the way you think about keeping snakes and stuff like that. I've met some amazing people. The Morelia community in general sometimes gets a bad rap about being snobby or whatever the case would be. But they're an amazing group of people, especially in our little pocket of the Northeast is just like a fantastic group of people. So yeah, that's kind of my thing.
The Morelia community is very like, I don't know how to
kind of tight.
They're very tight knit, but they're quiet. Like they're not like ball python people. Like ball python breeders are everywhere. Morelia breeders aren't everywhere. So you guys are a lot tighter knit. You guys all know basically each other by name and probably talk on a lot more regular basis than majority of a lot of ball python breeders do.
Yeah. I should mention this too. Just so people know of my background of what I've kept. I've kept 34 different species of pythons.
Oh, wow, nice.
So I pretty much work with the gauntlet of everything when it comes to pythons. But for me, carpet pythons are kind of the one that I just can't. I don't know. It's just you guys with whatever species your guys is, your main thing. The people listening, it's the same thing. It's just mine is carpet python. So,
well, I don't know if you noticed, but I always try to make sure that guy.
Yeah, come on, man. How's that not impressive?
Is always in the background just because, he actually moves around.
Yeah.
So he makes a really nice backdrop. But Nathan, I don't know how you feel about yours, but out of all of my snakes, the carpets are the ones that definitely just wow, take my breath away.
Probably being the one who's owned them the shortest period, they've definitely become one of my favorites for sure. There's definitely something different about a carpet. It's I feel like it's just always thinking. It's just little bit smarter than the rest. You know what I mean? There's actually something going on in there.
there's a brain function actually.
Right.
Let's see. We got Leviathan, Stephen and Courtney. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Ed, thank you very much, dude, for tuning in. Ed is actually building me my PVC carpet enclosures.
Nice.
I got the branches in. I got the heat panels. He's building them, and then I just got to make sure I get the heat panels and branches and all that stuff to him. I got the branches from, oh, God. Now I'm going to draw a blank. They custom make the PVC branches. I'm drawing a blank.
It's like, what is that? Custom habitats? Or no? They make it.
It's, oh God. I'm drawing a blank on.
You're doing good tonight, Jeremy.
I know, dude. It has been a long day here. Having this new baby is kicking my rear end, man.
You're still using that excuse, huh? It's been weeks, man. Come on.
Dude,
Congrats, by the way.
I don't sleep good at the moment anymore because like every time I hear a noise, I wake up. Well, he's constantly making grunts and groans, so I'm constantly waking up. But he's a good baby. I mean, he doesn't really cry; he just makes a lot of noises that I wake up to. But anyway, so I got all these. Especially enclosure designs? Do they do PVC branches?
I'm not sure. I know they do cages.
Yeah, I'm drawing.
Jason said realistic branches. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, like they're really nice, realistic looking branches. I mean, PVC wise, I can go grab one quick.
Quick while he's gone.
Yeah.
Take over this thing.
They look like
okay.
you can get them in different colors. I just went with the black and gray, but they're really
That's
nice,
cool.
like high quality stuff. But anyway, yeah, I want to make. I'll know when I make the video about the enclosures itself. I'll make sure I have the right name down. Let's see here. Pip Stalkers, Ashley, Nikita, thanks for tuning in. John and Christine, thanks for tuning in. Catches us up. So anyway, Jason saying David Brams. That sounds familiar.
He does like
I'm pretty sure you told me Specialty Enclosures when you called me that day and told me you
did. I?
Yeah, that's him.
I'm pretty sure you told me that.
He does like the 3D printed perch with you can put the water bowl in the middle of it. He's a good guy, David Brahms.
Yeah, same. It is.
Yeah. Sorry, Riley just messaged me there. He's getting a few things set up now, so he'll be on shortly. Okay. So, all right, while we wait on Riley, and he will, because he's basically the whole drive as to what made me have this great idea for this one topic for the live. Let's talk about this whole thing about the enrichment aspect and everything, and on how. Like, I'm not going to say, I know I try to stay as much away from the drama and everything as possible, but I also thought that this was a very interesting topic that has stirred up a crap ton of feathers. Personally, I started off with ball pythons in glass enclosures. Screen tops, I did everything I could to help keep the humidity in, gave them all sorts of hides, branches to climb on, all that stuff. And I will be like, out of what I had in glass enclosures throughout my time, you might see them out a little bit at night, but basically a ball python, it stayed in the freaking cave. Like, it didn't do a whole lot. Now, that's not saying that when it actually did come out and do something that it wasn't, and I'm not going to try to sound scientific because everybody knows I'm not sciencey by any means. But, like, I don't know how much they really got out of it. Like, when I look at a ball python or interact with the ball python, it doesn't, like, a ball python's like lights are on, but nobody's really home all the time. Like, they're just kind of, along for the ride. They're just happy to be doing whatever they're doing.
Right.
They're like a dog.
What's that?
They're like your dog.
If I had a dog, yeah.
That was a general statement, not your dog, Jeremy.
Dude, I have not really been around a dog for more than like an hour in like, I don't know how many years, dude. So I don't even know what a dog's really like to be around anymore. I stuck with the snakes and stuff. I enjoyed the snakes a lot more than a dog. But what's your, like I figure we could all bounce around on this one, but Nathan, what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, my ball pythons told me they don't like all the clutter, so I just keep them empty. I don't know why you guys are guessing. If you just talk to them, they'll tell you. I mean, honestly, I don't know. It's one of those things where if you look how a ball python lives in the wild, it's pretty similar to a tub. I mean, you know, I don't. I mean, what are you going to put in there? Perches? They don't climb. If they do, they usually hurt themselves or fall. So,
they don't have the tail really built for.
Yeah, I mean, they're not arboreal. So, you know, I mean, do I think it's necessary? I don't. You know, I'm a firm believer that if we're breeding these animals, we must be doing something right. You know, I don't think an unhealthy animal typically reproduces in general, but I don't necessarily feel one way or the other. I'm not strongly for or strongly against. I think it's just, you know, your preference. You know, I do have an issue with the clear enclosures. If you're not blocking, I think they do get stressed. You know, I do definitely prefer the PVC enclosures and things where they're not just open. But other than that, do what you want. You know, I don't think one's going to be necessarily better or worse.
Is that why? Is that why I always hear about the debate about the gray tubs you have? Is that why? Because is it stress? Like they'll stress out?
You know, I have both semi-clear and gray. I wouldn't say now, Jeremy, and you can speak to this because you have the clear tubs.
Yeah, because I run the clear tubs and semi-clear.
Yeah. So what I will say is that I think they can do fine in both. I think it has more to do with what they get used to than necessarily which one is better or worse. I use gray tubs. I use it from when they start as hatchlings in like an FB5 size to an FB8 or a 10 series, ARS, and they're on up. But like I said, I have some semi-clear 70 series tubs for some of my breeder girls, and they do fine in it. You know, and clearly, Jeremy, yours have been fine in the totally clear tub. So I will say I've had issues moving from a dark gray tub to a clear tub. I've had more issues than I've had going the other way.
Gotcha.
So if I had to logically say, I think it's just more about what they get used to.
I agree with that just because, and anybody that knows this whole situation, Nathan, you know what I'm going to talk about right now.
Yeah, you're a perfect scenario as to why
I'm the perfect scenario as to part of this whole debate as well. Everything I've produced, it knows nothing but semi-clear or clear tubs. So I've never had any issues at all as far as feeding. They've always fed great food responses. They breed great, all that stuff. Now bringing in I have a pied female from Nathan that she's probably what, Nathan, like a year and a half, going on 2 years old in that neighborhood.
October of 20 something. I don't know. 20.
We'll just say
not 22. So October 21. Yeah, October 21. That's when she was.
Okay, so yeah, like a year and a half. So I got her from Nathan, and she had never missed a meal with him. Now she was in a gray tub. Brought her over to my collection, put her into a she went directly into a clear tub. I didn't think anything about it. She hasn't eaten for me since she's been here. I've moved her around in the rack. I've moved her from clear to semi-clear. I've put a hide in with her. I've done everything human. I even took her for the magical car ride, and nothing has tripped this stinking snake into eating.
Jeremy, why don't you tell them the rest of the story, though? Because there's a reason you got that snake from me. So why don't you just explain to everybody? Because I think, again, we're back to the same situation, possibly.
Okay, yeah. All right. So originally what brought me to get this pastel pied from Nathan was I had purchased 2 pieds, a male and a female pair, that someone had approached me about wanting to know if I'd be interested in them. The price was great, so I couldn't turn the price down. So I took them. And they were on, the one would eat live rats, the other one would only eat live mice. And of course, the live mouser was the female. which would take forever to grow up on rat or on mice unless you fed her like 5 mice. Like there's not a whole lot of nutrition there. So I eventually decided to move, I sold the male off, and then Nathan had said Nathan posted something about his pods he was going to be letting go. And I was being a smart ass, and I said, "Hey, I'll trade you a mouse or pied for a pied that eats rats." And he said, "Okay." So, so I was like, "Oh, hey, whatever, So he did me a solid and traded me straight up, and I actually made out because my pie that he got from me was just a pie. I got a pastel pie from him, so I got the upgrade. Now we did the swap. The first feeding of that female you got from me, Nathan? You did what, an ASF, or was it a rat? I forget what you had told me.
That snake never ate a mouse again. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
So basically ate rats every week, just like every other snake I have.
So it just like
and yours never ate again.
They never ate since it's been here. But she hasn't lost any weight. So I will say that she has not lost any weight. I weigh her like once a month now, and she's not losing any weight.
She was at fat camp. So,
yeah. So it's now the big thing is, was this just perfect timing? And she decided to hit that 1,000-gram wall, and she's going through that maturity aspect that some ball pythons hit. The husbandry, I can't imagine it's a husbandry issue because everything else is, in that rack or in the whole rest of the room is fine. You
freak her out with your clear bins.
What's that?
She has a complex because of the clear bins now.
Dude, she might. But see, that's the thing. I've even moved her so that way she gets more like shaded area. It's just
more enrichment. That's the problem.
Yeah, we'll see that's where this also goes to is like, I think one thing that video, because I didn't watch all 50 million parts of it because the guy broke them down at like a minute part 1 through whatever. I did catch the recap that he was responding to Billy from Mutation Creations thing, though, on Billy's little spiel that he gave about it. But, I'm using clear tubs. Now, the reason I use clear tubs is completely different than enrichment purposes. It's just because when I'm feeding, I like to know, is that snake right there, sitting at the front of that tub, ready and waiting? And when I pull it open, is it going to be lunging? So I can physically see what's going on.
Live life on the edge. You got to take more risks there, Jeremy. That's fun.
Dude, you know me all too well. If I take risks, it's going to bite me in the rear end real quick every time.
You don't get tagged a few times during feedings, man. You're not living.
That one there did all the tagging that I'm good for about a couple of years. He holds the record. But I will say this, everybody. Anybody that's just thinking about getting a carpet python, he is puppy dog tame now. He just had a little bit of a rough spell in the beginning, to say the least.
Yeah, my experience has been, number one, with keeping all the different species of python. I used to think that all the pythons would be the same. That's not true. That's not even true within carpet pythons. And I think that, in my opinion, I don't know, maybe this has changed. I'm not really in the ball python world or whatever, but I think that old mindset of, 90-degree hotspot, 80-degree ambient, that kind of idea, that doesn't necessarily apply to every species of python. And when you work with different species of python, you start to see these little things that stand out that you wouldn't necessarily see if you're just working with one species. And then you turn around and you apply those things to another species that you're working with. So for me, I didn't have luck with ball pythons because I was trying to treat it like a carpet python, and it didn't work. The one thing I will say, though, is about the whole wild thing, and I hope people don't hate me for this, but when my idea of carpet pythons in Australia was one way in my head, And I used to say similar things to where I would keep carpet pythons in racks, and they didn't perch and this and that and all this kind of stuff. When I saw them in the wild, my whole idea of what I thought they were doing in the wild is completely different than what actually is going on. So when I hear people talk about seeing ball pythons in the wild, and I'm not disagreeing with, you know, the whole they're in termite mounds, they stay underground and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know, are they studied enough to know that for real? Or is that just a snapshot? And then even just going and seeing carpet pythons in Australia, I usually go at the same time of year. So I'm not seeing no other snapshot except this time of year and what they're doing. And then you start to think that this is what they do, and that's not necessarily the case, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense.
So I think sometimes we get to like, this is the way we're going to keep it. And I think sometimes like they're looking for, like, you're not baking a cake, you know what I mean? You're keeping an animal, and each animal is going to be individualistic, and you might want to have to adapt or adjust, or maybe one needs more humidity than another one. But it's like, I think that the way that the reptile hobby sort of approaches snake keeping sometimes, and I think this is where the pushback comes, right? Because you got one group that is successfully doing it this way and has been doing it this way for years. You have this other group that's coming along and saying that they want to try to push it forward, try to move the ball ahead. Like, you know, I just don't understand, like why not just make a bigger tub? We're keeping the snake in a box, but if it's a matter of, like, I mean, I see some ball pythons breeding in a tub, and I'm not against tubs. I have tubs, so it's not like I'm anti-tub. But why not just make a bigger one? Like, why does it have to be as small as you can get? And I think it just comes from the mindset of the whole idea of the ball python hobby is geared around producing amazing morphs, you know what I mean? And in order to do that on any type of scale, and then I think you had made the comment earlier about you know, the amount of morphs in the ball python hobby is just unlike any other, I would say any other like snake, right? I mean, maybe corn snakes, I guess, but you know, not even that. I don't think can rival ball pythons, you know. So, you know, I don't know. It's to me, it's always been like the two different worlds. Like, to me, I'm more of a snake nerd when I geek out on the whole idea of the behavior or what they're doing or how they work, or like, you know, I always look at it as like a lot of people are into like, think about it as a car. Some people just like the fancy paint job and, you know, how the car looks and how, you know, I'm into how does it work? You know what I mean? And there's not one way is not right and the other way is not wrong, and vice versa. You know, it's just we're into different things. You know, it's just the way it is. I don't know.
That's a very good point and interesting view too, Eric. I do want to say that. I think like with your comment with the bigger tub thing, that there is driven basically with the mindset of you know, you can fit X amount of ball pythons in one rack at 55, 40, exactly. 70, you know, like it's you can nail it. It gives you better chances to hit all those odds.
Yes.
But at the same token, it's like, you're right. Like if this is going to be a new movement or swing to where everybody's eventually does it, you know, then, hey, we are going to have to maybe up it to, you know, some of the boa sized racks or something like that.
I guess my question would be, I mean, you guys don't want to keep your snakes poorly, right?
No.
None of us do. I don't think anybody does, right? And what's working for you in your place, to what you guys just talked about. You have a snake that's good in your place, and then you send it over to him, and now it doesn't work over there. You know, like, what is that? Why does that happen? You know, and everybody's going to have their thoughts on why that happens. But, you know, I don't know. I think that the thing I was saying on Carpets and Coffee that I think that, you know, that kind of like irritated me a bit is that when you had Liam, that's his name, right? Liam was talking about the thing that he did, and he's bringing scientific evidence to back up his claims. And then the mutation creation video was sort of just taking shots at him and not backing up their claims. And what pisses me off about that is it's just like, just own it. Just own what you're doing. I want to breed morphs. I want to produce all these morphs, and this is how I'm going to keep them. Just own it. Why are you trying to knock down somebody else? And I think that's my whole frustration with the whole the whole reptile hobby in general. It's just like we're just knocking each other down because, I don't know, maybe take a step back and maybe you can learn something. Like, I think I used to say this all the time. Like, I talk to a lot of old school keepers and stuff. Like, I'm talking old. So, I mean, we talked to the guy that wrote the Blue Bible, the breeding pythons and boas of the world. Don't do well in bigger tubs. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I can't really say that one way or the other, So,
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I've seen that a million times. I can't tell you how many times I've had to move snakes back to their tub, smaller tub, because they just will not eat when you move them.
I think in fairness to that point, right? Here's the thing that I think that the people that are trying to push the whole keeping them in this huge naturalistic enclosure type of thing is like, they're not dealing with that many. Like, you guys are dealing with, I mean, how many snakes do you have?
Right now, I've got
right?
A lot.
Your sample size is
got
huge.
a crap ton.
Right? I mean, your sample size.
I mean,
is
John
huge.
that just commented had over 70 clutches this year, to give you an idea how many he has. So he has
Well, there you go.
well more than I do. Even.
So, I mean, I know a good friend of mine, right? I don't want to put him out there or whatever, but anyway, he had the same thing with rhino rat snakes. You can kind of figure out who it is. Anyway, he would breed, when he put it into a bigger enclosure, it's stressed out. Now, why it's stressed out, that's for another debate, right? But it's stressed out. So what did he do as a keeper? He adjusted that, put it in a smaller tub, right? So to me, if you're dealing with hundreds of clutches and hundreds of animals, and you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again, to where if they're in a bigger tub, then you got to move it to a smaller tub. Okay, I'm going to go with you because I don't do that. So I don't have that mindset. It's no different than when I said earlier about like what they do in the wild. To me, I don't like that argument because you haven't seen them in the wild. So how do you know? You know what I mean? So like, it's the same approach that I'm going to say with you guys with the ball pythons. If you're saying that they stress out in a bigger tub, then yeah, you're going to keep it in a smaller tub.
And like you said, it's not across the board.
Yeah.
Plenty of them you move, they're fine. I mean, listen, I've had them where bedding changes, going from one type of bedding to another.
Sure.
For whatever reason, that they don't like that.
Right.
Or sometimes that resets their brain, and then they'll start feeding if they weren't feeding too. Like,
yeah,
sure.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, one of the reasons ball pythons sometimes get a bad name is because they tend to be a little bit picky, a little bit easy to stress out, or a little bit easy to, have them come off food or whatever it may be. So with that being said, I think as a keeper, you want to be flexible to change, right? You want to be able to say, okay, this worked for this one, or this didn't work for this one. And, I think you're 100% correct. When you're keeping larger numbers, you do see patterns. Mm-hmm. So when I move one and the next week it doesn't eat, I'm not shocked. It's like, okay, we'll give it a little more time. If it still doesn't do it, I'll move it back. If I move it back and it eats immediately, all right, this one's going to be a little tougher to move. Sometimes I'll move it and I'll throw a hide in the bin with it, to give it something feels a little smaller. I think as a good keeper, that's all part of it. It's not one size fits all. And I will 100% agree. Keeping other species, you don't keep them the same. They're different. The carpet's different than my spotted python. They're definitely different.
Yes.
Still pythons,
right?
Definitely not the same, right? So, and I think isn't that part of the joy of what we all do? Is you get to know those species and you get to see what works, what doesn't work, and you pull pieces from all of that. You take, hopefully, and I think maybe what all of us are speaking to a little bit is keeping an open mind. Mm-hmm. And not immediately going after somebody who has a method that isn't your method, listening to that, taking that in, maybe learning something, maybe Maybe you don't use their whole method, but you use 10% of it. Maybe you find a piece in that works for you. I think as a hobby as a whole, that's probably something we should all be doing more of. Just taking a breath, taking a second, and maybe listening a little more before we react that our way is the only way.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I think a lot of times, you know, I was going to say, I don't know if I finished my thought on this earlier, but like, you know, you have old school breeders that have been doing it for a long time. I think newer school breeders don't understand, or keepers. I don't know. I guess the people that are talking about naturalistic enclosures are not necessarily breeders. I don't know how that works in the ball python world, but, you know, back then there was no equipment, you know, in the 80s and stuff. I kept snakes in a fish tank with a makeshift lid that, like, you know, there was no heat panels or you know, there was none of that stuff. You had to like make it up yourself, you know. It's like you would go get those red iridescent bulbs from
Right.
from Home Depot or whatever, you know, and that's kind of how you do it. So like they made it work with what they had available to them, and a lot of times those things came from other places. And I think today it's a completely different world. I mean, you have, not only do you have the technology of reptile keeping when it comes to just, you know, thermostats and PVC branches and this and all the backgrounds and everything, and then you put on top of that, you have just like technology in general to where you can control pretty much everything from your phone and see what's going on inside your reptile room just at a glance, you know?
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yep. Riley will be here momentarily. He messaged me, so we'll have Riley here in a minute or two. I do want to thank everybody, the sponsors of this week's episode, that before we dive deeper into this and before Riley shows up. So let's thank the sponsors of this week's episode. Hold on here. Helps if I click the right thing, though, doesn't it? It's one of Gettysburg Reptile Expo LLC is located at the All-Star Event Complex in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. A 45,000 square foot venue with 125 plus vendors and top quality breeders, along with 270 plus tables. If you're looking for a python, boa, colubrid, gecko, lizard, or amphibian, you've come to the right place. Doesn't matter if you're a breeder looking for that missing piece to your project or a pet owner looking for your next scaly friend, Gettysburg Reptile Expo LLC has you covered. Need an incubator or rack system? They have you covered with sea serpents set up there to meet all your needs. The next show dates are March 18th, July 15th, and November 11th of 2023. Show times are from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Make sure to check them out on their website, Instagram, and Facebook. Mark your calendars because this is one show you don't want to miss. So I'll see you at Gettysburg Reptile Expo LLC. Thank you, Joe, and the Gettysburg Reptile Expo LLC for sponsoring this week's episode. And on top of it, we've also got Nathan here at Infinite Possible Pythons that's also sponsoring this week's episode. Oh, we got, let me do this. Boom, there we go. So everybody, if you need ball pythons, Nathan can even chime in here if he's got any special pairings for you to look out for this season. But he's, you know, Chihuahua geckos. Hopefully I said that right, Nathan. I always screw that up. I always want to call them Chihuahuas. And then on top of it, you know, if you have any branding needs, definitely hit Nathan up. He will get you set up no matter what, as far as branding needs, shirts, banners, tablecloths, all that stuff that you should have, in my opinion, for shows, just to give you that extra little notch up above and make yourself stand out amongst the crowd. Nathan is the man to go to. So Nathan, is there any pairings you want to chime in there about? Super exciting for this season? No,
I'm not speaking yet. I don't want to jinx nothing. There's too many really close to that. You know, it's still reabsorbed, Mark. So we are talking about nothing yet. A few more weeks, I'll be more willing to talk.
I am fingers crossed that I do not jinx myself for my one pairing. But it is my first. It's a self-produced female. It's a pastel het clown, pastel het clown, a het TSK exanthic, being bred back to her brother, which is a bumblebee het clown, het exanthic. So we can have first chance, one, self-produced animals, which is awesome, and two, first time of chance of hitting that double visual recessive. So super excited about that. She is looking good too. Just I ultrasounded her, yes, but it was a couple days ago, and she's like all but at 30 mil follicles. So if I can hit that 30 mil follicle mark, I'm pretty sure I'm safe sailing. And then
The only thing I can say, the only safe ones are the first couple out. By chance, both happen to be urban camo stuff. So I can tell you that those are at least not reabsorbing because they're already gave me prelays sheds. So
nice. I know clutch 1 is due to be cut here on Friday. Yeah, Friday. Clutch 1 is due to be cut. That's all double head exanthic desert ghost stuff. Clutch 2 was just laid, folks, so that video will be out this week. And I am like all but 100% sure that my carpet girl is gravid. I'm waiting on the prelay shed. But Eric, this is a question for you.
Sure.
When a female's gravid, do they normally just stay in their hide, or do they move around, go up and perch in their basking areas and stuff and act normal? What's your
They usually seek out the heat.
Okay.
Yeah, once they've ovulated, the females are usually hanging on the heat. A couple things. It's I'm gonna have to do a video showing it, but what they get is they get this, and I've talked about it numerous times on NPR, but their belly scales get kind of squared off.
Okay.
As soon as you see it, and you've seen it once, you see it automatically. I guess because maybe they're a thinner bodied snake than say a ball python, so you're not it shows a little differently. And then another weird quirk about carpets is right before they're going to lay. I don't know if ball pythons, maybe you guys have seen this in the clutches that you've done. They lay in this pretzel position. They're like in the most goofy. Have you guys seen that?
They look uncomfortable, right?
No, they're literally like, I wish I had a picture of it, but they look like a soft pretzel. I don't know how to explain it. They're like weird wrapped, and they're like, this part is up, this part is down. They're like, it's all contorted and weird, but yeah, I don't know.
I say, because what threw me off, like, she's been in her hide,
right?
But the only time she's ever been in her hide, and because she's got belly heat, and I have a heat lamp on top too as well, so that way she goes up the perch, she can get up closer to that heat as well.
Mm-hmm. Is it the jungle behind you?
What's that?
Is it the jungle behind you?
No. She's down below. You can't see her. She's in her cave now, over top of the belly heat. Well, it's just odd that, like, normally she's never in her cave to begin with unless she's in check. So that's one thing that's gotten me thinking, okay, we're good to go. Plus the fact that when I ultrasounded her, she was like all but, what was it? I think I even messaged you the numbers. It was like all but, I think it's like 31 or something like that, mil follicle. Yeah. And even on the ultrasound, it looked like eggs. Like, it didn't look like a follicle anymore. It was oval looking like an egg.
That's the interesting thing, the difference between, say, carpets and ball pythons. Like, you guys are breeding snakes all year round, no? Right?
Correct, yeah.
Pretty much.
For the most part, anyway. For the most part.
Carpets are very seasonal, like very, very, very seasonal. I think there's been a few people that have produced carpets outside of the normal window. I follow the holidays type of deal. It's usually October, you stop feeding them. November or Halloween, you stop feeding them. Thanksgiving is sort of like when you sort of start introductions and begin cooling. Christmas time, you're pairing them up, and then probably Valentine's Day, St. Patty's Day, you're getting eggs, and then usually around Memorial Day, 4th of July, they're hatching out.
Okay. Yeah. See, I'm hoping that I can have these babies hatched out by 4th of July, because I've got really good friends that are making the travel up from Missouri to my breeder's barbecue, which you are invited to, Eric. I'll get you the information on that as well.
Yeah, cool.
But they're gonna be making the travel up here, and my sister Angie there, she will not get a carpet python from anybody else but from me, and she's one of the babies that this guy here produced.
Mhm.
So hopefully these snakes hatch out and they're healthy, and I can get them established quick, and she can hand pick it and take it home because I think that's just gonna be such a neat thing.
Yeah. What's up, Riley?
What up?
What up, brother? Thank you for, dude. All right, funny, haha. We're sitting here backstage and we were talking, and I'm looking up in the right hand corner and it says scheduled 9 p.m. And we're here talking. I'm staring at that. And it's like, yeah, it's like Riley should be here soon. I'm there staring at it. Eric and Nathan and I were talking. And I look down at the lower right hand corner. I'm like, well, it's only 8 o'clock. And I look back up at the 9. I'm like, oh crap. It's like the light bulb just went off. It's like,
All good.
So I apologize, dude, but I do want to thank you for joining us, even a little bit ahead of schedule from what we had planned, dude. But I greatly appreciate
Cool with me,
it.
man. Yeah, I'm flexible. What's up?
So, all right, here, everybody, we're gonna dive since Riley's here and Nathan's still here because Nathan's got to get rolling here soon. Let's talk about this. This here is what the whole made me think of doing this topic for the live stream was this meme here, and I thought it spoke volumes. And Riley, do you want to touch base on it? Because since you posted it, do you want to tell your feelings on it a little bit? Because it spoke volumes to me, dude. And I just thought it deserved some recognition. It was something maybe we kind of got a little bit ass backwards in the ball python end.
Yeah. So to start, I actually don't recall where I thought or who shared it because I was too focused on the content itself. So if anybody's watching this is like, I know, feel free to either share it or don't. I don't know if they care or not, but the person behind it is not the point. It's not the point. The point is this, it just kind of speaks to me to a different approach of how the animals are viewed. And I've bounced this idea back and forth off Eric in some of our other chats prior to this. And he has some great viewpoints on it as well that also added to sort of my thought process. But to me, when I saw that, it was just like the ultimate sign of disrespect for the species being kept, like bar none. Like that's the, like, it was almost as if they said, like, these animals are useless unless they come in a color morph and live in my enclosure and have some monetary value. Otherwise, the wild type normals are trash. Get rid of them. No respect for them. And, in turn, also no respect for them as a species, where they live, where they're from, the role they play in their environment. And to me, it was probably one of the most disappointing things I could have seen come out of, the ball python niche as a whole. I've seen silly memes and I love good dark humor. I'm a self-proclaimed asshole, like I can be really rude and kind of walk that fine line. I'm like, God, really, that, but that to me was just like, it struck a certain note within me because I actually own a pair of ball pythons and they're just normals for absolutely nothing. And I actually bred them last year to intentionally produce normals for the shop as great pets. And they're the most robust, best feeding, quick to get on to everything, most like everything you want in a snake. They were it. And when I have all these like multiple gene animals around the shop that tend to get issues or don't feed or don't shed right or hit 1,000-gram wall or all these other things that you don't see in just a straight, pure, wild type, robust animal. And then to see the hobby just like completely disregard that, it also struck me because it is so polar opposite to how the Morelia world looks at animals. And that's where I very firmly plant myself as like my main staple of taxa that I focus on, aside from, my superfluous side projects. But, we love the natural expression of these animals. We pine to go overseas to find them in their habitat and just see what they look like naturally in the different variations. And to be completely honest, a wild type ball python probably doesn't vary too much if it doesn't have morph. So there isn't that layer of appeal there. So I get that. If like say Togo, Ghana, Benin, and some of the other places, the different countries where they occurred had different like looks as like almost like a locality variation, maybe that vein would be in there. So it's a different level of appreciation. It is still appreciation to some degree, but I just find it like I get the economics of a business and breeding snakes and all that stuff and the morphs and the value and a pretty snake. Like I get all of that. Anybody who wants to say, but bananas are beautiful and they get people over their fear of snakes. I 100% agree. Like I love all that good stuff, but I'm just saying, when you just see no value in just the normal wild type, you've gone too far. And I understand monetary value is different from like intrinsic value or aesthetic value or nostalgic value. I get it. Those are very different things, but there needs to be appreciation for that because they are the exact same as your morphs, if not better, health-wise and behavior-wise. There is such a thing as too many genes stacked on, and you get just out of control, and it just doesn't work well. I've seen it a bunch of times at work. We literally produced an entire clutch of like 7 gene animals, and they all died. They're all just broken, just physically broken, like recessives, codoms, allelics, all this stuff. They just duck bills, they didn't form right, they never started right, they just too much broken genetics, and these things did not thrive. And then you have a classic wild type with no underlying hets that hatches out twice the size of your basic blue-eyed Lucy, eats in 2 weeks right away, never has an issue, and it's the most unignorably robust version of that species. When you have an entire array of various morphs, it's impossible for me to ignore that fact. So I don't know, man. I get it. Ball python folks need to make money if that's their business, or if they're producing animals to sell, the variety is there. So like, I get that, like rock on, do that. But at what point is it kind of just lost when you can't appreciate the wild type? I'm not saying breeders all have to keep wild types in their collection. I'm just saying the negative like label towards a wild type ball python like that was just, and to put it out there so openly was just like a slap in their own faces. I was just shocked. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing.
I don't mean to interrupt. I will be the first to admit that if anybody goes back and watches my clutch cuttings, I think I produced one just plain flat out normal. And cutting that clutch, if I do recall, if you would go back and watch it, I was probably like, oh crap, I hit a normal. After seeing this meme, it got my wheels turning to where it's like, and I started diving into on morph market, which is dangerous because me and morph market. So I started going through several different species on there and noted, like, just trying to see, okay, the normals are this of all these other species, and then looking at all the different price points of the morphs or localities, all that type of stuff. And I personally don't think that there is a species other than ball pythons where your normals take such a huge, and this I'm looking at it from the monetary value as well on this one.
Sure.
But like the normals, like I don't think there's another species where the normals take such a big hit monetary wise or are devalued as much as in the ball pythons. And I don't understand why. Because Like, I don't know what you sell them for at your pet shop, Riley, but I know if I go to my local pet shop, they're almost like $100 for a normal.
Yeah, depending on, like, if I'm producing them, we'll sell them as low as possible. But if we have to, you know, if we buy from a local breeder that's in our network, or we get some wholesale normals, you know, we're sort of bound by whatever that wholesale price is to affect our sales price, but we try to keep it no more than $99. And to be honest, the first time snake keeper or pet keeper, their parents are not going to be able to look past that $99 point when there's $300-$400 ones. Otherwise, you know, some people go for the extra stuff, and that's fine. And to make a point about, like, you know, you said your egg cutting video and you were disappointed with the normal. That's completely fine, because that is disappointment from what your expectations are based on the genetic pairing sort of thing. So if, like, you're going for odds or something and it doesn't strike, that's fine to be upset about that. That is completely different than seeing no absolute value in a normal. What I think could make the biggest difference is if people just weren't afraid of pairing snakes that had the possibility of producing poshets that are normals or normals, because you can then turn those into just straight normals you sell to a pet shop or somebody who's looking for their first pet snake, and you can make a huge difference and still get a little bit of monetary compensation for your time and effort, you know, 50, 80, $100, whatever, or you donate it. But whatever it is, like, there is still value to those animals, because more often than not, they're the ones that are the first experienced snake for somebody, because of the price point, because of availability. Well, maybe not anymore. I don't know. Can you find normals anymore?
In all honesty, I think it's anymore with, like, the combination gene wise, I think it's harder to hit a normal than it is to not.
Honestly,
the normal is probably more rare than anything at the moment.
I sold out of my normals before any of my other morphs this year.
Sweet.
So to be completely honest with you, you know, as far as the value of a normal, listen, it's supply and demand.
Of course.
The easiest thing to make is a normal, right?
Yep.
And it's the byproduct to a million other projects. So
Yep.
As far as what the value, intrinsic value of that snake, I think it's driven more by that than necessarily how much people might feel. But I agree with you. You know, I use this as an example all the time. When a pet owner with their kids comes to the table, almost always, I would say 98% of the time, the child picks the normal, and the parent says, why do you want that one? What about this one? And they'll point to the banana, the candy, the pie, the whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I see that behavior time and time and time again, which does make me wonder a little bit if that isn't something, a learned behavior or a learned thing. Okay. Why is it that the adults always go for the flashy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and when the children, they naturally, like, listen, I've had plenty of normals that are gorgeous. Like, I'm not sure where that comes from, but I do see that behavior over and over. And I think you're 100% right. To a first-time pet owner, they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're awesome. Like, I really, like I said, I've had no issues with them. I think when you're going for those big projects, I think, like you said, Jeremy, yeah, you might be bummed. It's like betting on a game and you lose, right? Yeah, you're going to be
100%.
You know, I don't think you're treating that normal any different than the rest of them. You're going to care for it the same way. You're going to do all of that. So, you know, I honestly think that the negative piece of this that you guys are speaking of is probably a small percentage of the breeder community.
I would agree.
And it really is as a whole, and especially inside the pet community, they don't know any different. It's just a looks thing.
Yeah.
So I got a question as far as that goes, but you see that with morphs too, no? I mean, I'm guilty of this as well, right? So like when I first got into carpets, like having an albino carpet was like the pinnacle of, you know, of what you could have as far as carpet pythons go. And then once I got it, it's like I was addicted to the hunt of the animal. And once I got the animal, now I need a new hunt. right? I need a new, like, why did my opinion change of that albino now that I have it? Now I need an albino zebra something, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, why is it that, you know, I get it that, you know, you're making nicer and nicer snakes, but like, I think even just in morphs, you lose the appreciation of the morph. Like, you can't tell me that there's not morphs and ball pythons that are like, kind of like, that's, I mean, is pastel like that now? Is it still?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Unless you have a really nice quality one that just like.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I think this would be the difference between the carpet python world or the Morelia world and say the ball python world, at least from my perspective. We focus on, and this is probably because in the early days, we didn't have a lot of morphs. We had two, you know, we just had two. And a lot of like what we had to do was make our snakes look prettier by selectively breeding normal types, right?
Yeah. And there is something to be said that there is a lot more variation in the normal wild types in Morelia as opposed to the normal wild types of Python regius.
Sure. But what I'm getting at is like, you know, Jeremy, when you saw Mike Curtin's zebra, right? Right?
Oh, my jaw.
What do you think that's from? So what he's done, right? And sort of what we've done in the Morelia python world is like, not only are we selecting for the normals, we're selecting for the morphs as well. And when you combine the two of them, you get outstanding examples of whatever the morph would be. Does that happen in the ball python world? Like, I don't know. From the outside observer, I see it as like, I'm just putting gene X with gene X to gene Y, and I'm putting them together, and I'm going to make XY.
So, Eric, before you guys answer, because I know you have a much better answer than me, Eric, my only observation that will probably line up with what they're about to say, I think, is yes, there is some quality variation because I've seen it a little bit. We had a nice orange dream that came through from a local breeder that just literally knocked my socks off compared to what the orange dreams I've seen before. And Ozzy Boyd's, Ahmad Osman, he's a great example of somebody who does selectively fine tune and pick for the best of that. But yeah, you guys can go ahead because I do want to I just want to make sure nobody thinks I'm like destroying the ball python community and their approach, because I agree with everything you guys have said so far. I do think it's a very small minority of the population, and I digress.
And this is also why I selected you three guys to come on here, because one, Riley, you and Eric are both, you guys are more on the Morelia, the locality based stuff, but you guys are probably some of the most level-headed people that I know in the Morelia industry. And granted, I don't know a whole lot of people in the Morelia side of the hobby, but you guys are so level-headed, and I get along with you. And Nathan, I always forget which way I got. Nathan and I, we're good friends, and I know Nathan's super level-headed, and he can look at everything from both sides because he's working with more than one species as well. I had another friend I could hit up as well. I hit Nathan up first, and the other friend was my buddy Chris at BNS, because he keeps like a crap ton of species. So that's why I assembled this, was just because it's a good base group of level-headed people that can see it from a completely neutral point.
So to your point, Riley, you took the words out of my mouth. Ozzy is an amazing example of that because of what he's done over many years with the Orange Dream project and that gene. Mm-hmm. And clearly you can see what the benefit was to doing that. Mm-hmm. A bit of concern, if I look at the industry as a whole, the ball python industry as a whole, I think they've almost made it difficult to do that. Because, let's use pastel as an example. I have a couple amazing, I'm very big on, I want the best quality. Mm-hmm. I don't just want the gene. Mm-hmm. I want the best quality of that gene. I've sold plenty of animals that may have been more powerful for what I thought was a better quality of that. Sure. Okay. So, but using pastel as an example, I can breed the most gorgeous line of pastel. I can do some line breeding. I can make that. But unfortunately, the industry most likely is going to look at that as a pastel. So now you've spent a lot of time and effort to build something that if you're in this to make money, you will never do that, right? Now, if you're just simply in this because you love the animal and you want to create for yourself a better version of that gene, then great.
Yeah.
That's a great, right? So I think finding a balance of those things, and yes, it is a bit frustrating, you know, it is a bit frustrating that an industry will dictate the value of a gene based on the overall picture and not what you're holding in your hand, right?
Sure.
So
there's a bit of that in carpet pythons too. I will not deny that. There's there's a fair amount of that in there. Like it might not necessarily be associated with a morph. There just might be inherent value associated with the species or subspecies. I could tell you right now, people value a normal coastal much lower than a normal jungle. And that's just, but I do think that also ties into what we were speaking on early about Jeremy, when you mentioned how the parents go for the brightly colored stuff, the Lucy's and the bananas. I firsthand see that in the shop all the time. And I've talked to customers. I've like sort of involuntarily pulled them just to figure out where their head's at. And they like things that are pretty. That's really what it comes down to. Right. And there are some people that aren't down with those bright ones or the albinos because the red eyes does turn some people off. We've got albino corn snakes, and that's the one thing that those folks will be averse to. So I fully understand, like, when you're walking through and you're not as absorbed into this hobby as we are, where we can dissect everything visually and kind of know what it is. People are going to see something. If it catches their eye, and it's usually brightly colored, pretty, yellow or white or pink or something like that. And there is definitely a lot of that in carpet pythons too. It just tends to be less like variable, I guess. We don't have a lot of like the morphs and mutations, but you tend to see a lot of strong swaying towards the stuff that's brightly colored. Eric and I will be the first ones to say that Papuan carpets have been slept on for the last decade plus as just brown snakes. And you can even lump Darwin's in there for the same reason, Papuan carpets and inlands. Yeah, they don't have those bright colors. And for years and years and years, considerably lower valuation for those animals. Nowadays, you're starting to see a little bit of that paradigm shift. You're starting to see people appreciate it, but that has other factors layered on as to why. Because ball pythons, you can still get imports. You can still get fresh stuff. There isn't really like a choke on that supply chain in any regard. Whereas Morelia, there is. The only stuff that we can get in legally, unless you're exporting from a private breeder in some other country and you go through all that, hullabaloo, is the stuff from Papua New Guinea, specifically West Papua. And so, I think because there is such a limiting factor layered on there, similar to retics, that's why like the super dwarfs are valued so high. There's a limiting factor layered on there that adds like an inignorable level of rarity and exclusivity. So that changes things. But it's interesting because Eric and I are such brown snake lovers, and the rest of the world hates on our dirty brown crappets.
Yeah, I think it was RSB that sort of made a comment. If you want something to be worth more, others, you can't just say it. You have to convince them why, right? Okay, exactly. So this is the whole push behind Morelia Python Radio, because to Riley's point, in 2012, nobody gave two shits. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I don't want to speak. A few people cared about Papuan carpets, and everybody cared about jungle carpets. And I know why. I mean, and again, a lot of times people will take this as me knocking a jungle carpet, and I'm not. I see what that is. But what I'm looking at even further down the line, and my vision is that I can make that Papuan carpet look like the jungle carpet, not necessarily in the color, but just in, if you're into a more earth tone snake, I'm going to give you contrast. There's a palette of 4 colors on a Papuan carpet where there's only 2 colors on a jungle carpet, right? Yeah. So you have yellow and black, as opposed to on a Papuan carpet, you have brown, You have, I mean, I have some that have yellow in them. I have some that they're like chestnutty brown. I have some that are black. I have some that are like the gauntlet
purple,
of colors.
There's
You know,
buckskin. There's yellow. There's orange. There's craziness.
Right, and there's a lot of you know, again, not having the morph side of it, because in Poplins there's what, 2 genes basically, granite and axanthic, and you know, people have made that already. And again, this is sort of, and even myself, I struggle with this. Is like, why was I so excited about having a granite in 2012, and now it's 2023, and I could care less about having one, you know, because the like, is that really what I wanted to do, or what I've always felt like I was doing what somebody, like I had to do specific things in order to fit into a community. I don't know if you guys experience this in the ball python world. I'm sure you do, right? You have to have, I mean, what's Kabelka's, you know, what's those crazy, like amazing snakes that he's creating, you know? But like, it just seems like, what is it, red stripe or something? And then everybody wanted a red stripe, and everybody slept on it for a long time, or what? Am I right in that? In that thing?
Red stripe's one of them. Yeah. Red stripe. There's a new one. What was it? Well, all right. We were joking around in our group, in our small group chat that we have, because Justin put out a video about pastel. So I think I was the first one to instigate it, but I put a post up in our group chat saying, "Hey, pastels just doubled in price. Watch it." So
nice.
But I mean, you do make an interesting point, though. There's certain people that do fluctuate what's hot, what's not, and you know, the market goes where there's certain people are taking it.
Justin's a great example of marketing his vision to his audience in a very highly communicable way, so that they see what he sees and understand his vision and valuation. And that's why he is so successful.
I think if you want to stand out, and just again, my observation is like, if you want to stand out in the reptile world, you have to be a leader, not a follower, right?
Yes.
So you have to pick whatever it is. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if other people don't like it, because as we know, the reptile hobby is cyclical. 20 years ago, a Savu python was worth $10. Now you can't even find one. You know what I mean? So it goes up and down just because of availability, and supply and demand type of thing. But I think what I find, and even in carpets, this happens too, is that people seem to, and again, if I was the carpet python guy getting in 2012, I would have just gotten a whole bunch of jungles from Mike Curtin, and I would have been off to the races. But now I'm no different than Mike Curtin, right? I'm the same as him, but now I have to compete with the guy that made the snakes. You know what I mean? I'm competing with it's probably similar to competing with Kabelka, right? So have a vision, man. Have a vision. Just do what you like. Pick what you like. Whatever. I mean, there's so many morphs and ball pythons. You could pick whatever. I mean, the palette is just incredible. And then just like, I really like this gene. Let me try to refine it. Let me try to breed it. What happens when I breed it with this? What happens when I breed it that? I think where I screwed up when I was getting back into the reptile hobbies, I wanted it all. I wanted everything. I have to have everything. And Owen, my co-host on NPR, he focused on caramel carpets, right? He focused on caramels. And I swear to date, he has some of the best examples of caramel carpets in the US, because he's been breeding them for 10 years, so, this is why. So I think a lot of times that, it's always been my thing is that I don't want to follow somebody else's, because I'm never going to be as good as them. They're always going to be the ones that are leading the pack, and I'm never going to be as good as them. So I have to do something different that I like. It's sort of even why I'm into carpets and not ball pythons, right? It's the same mindset that I had. I'm getting into ball pythons. I'm like, man, there's so many people at the top. I'm never going to be anybody. And how am I going to, and mind you, back then there was no YouTube, wasn't a big thing and all that kind of stuff. It was just kind of seeing its thing. So it's not like you could get out there and sort of put your name other than being at a show or having the cutting edge morph. So I'm like, well, screw that. I'm going to do what these guys did with ball pythons. I'm going to do with carpet pythons. And that's my mission. That's where I'm at. So
100%.
RSB here says Justin's like a Ford or Disney of ball pythons. Well, RSB, I'll pretend that says Chevy or Disney, but he's an example of preparation and timing. He's so far out in front, he earned influence. I mean, don't get me wrong, Justin has earned his spot where he's at. I do not deny that man that. It's part of me doesn't like seeing that one man can, like, his word could trump, like, basically sink a whole project. If he all of a sudden came out tomorrow and said, hey, you know, if you're working with Clown, haha, joke's on you. It's a dead end. Good luck selling it. And he comes out with something else the next day. You know, he has that influence. So, you know.
Yeah, but to Eric's point, if you go your own direction, if you use your own vision, if you work your own projects, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
You know, that is, I will tell you, being in the ball python industry, it is incredibly frustrating. It's like a bunch of lemmings running off the cliff, right? And you're sitting there watching and you're like, hello, like, is anybody here thinking for themselves, right? Like, how many of you are going to keep investing in animals for projects that you will never be able to get ahead in? Just stop for a minute. Make something that you like. And maybe somebody like a Justin or whoever might eventually notice you.
What about JD Constriction? JD Constriction,
right?
Right. Yeah. He's a perfect example of
his booth grabs you. His
100%.
His booth slaps you in the face and says, I followed my own lane and I did it. You can't ignore it. And it looks good. Right. And he gets recognition for it. You don't even have to like the damn ball pythons or the Xanic gene, or you don't have to like any of that. But you see that and you're like, that man has presentation. He knows what he's doing. And if I was in the market for that stuff, he's the one I would go to.
Right. Because you don't need to please the entire market. You don't. For every listen, that's the beauty of social media here that we don't talk about, is that I don't care what you like. You will find other people that like it. Right. So make your own path. You'll have your own followers. You'll have your own people that appreciate your project. You know, it's okay to purchase from people like Justin to build a project, but don't just follow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would love to see somebody go back to like the root-based normals and produce selectively bred ones where the alien heads have no eyes and they're just clean blotches, and then something with a stripe, and then something with tons of portholes, because you can do that. I had an import female, you know, what we would have called a dinker years ago, and she was clean patches on the side with no eye holes in any of her patches and a perfect unbroken stripe nearly all the way down. And I ended up moving her on, long story short, but I can't help but think, like, man, if somebody just really like stuck with something like that, you could make some amazing stuff and then layer your high quality genetics on top of that. And what you will get will be even better quality in the end. If you start with like the crispest, the cleanest, the most robust, healthy, wild type animal with the look that you're after, and then layer your genes on. I mean, you could theoretically take your average looking, we'll just pick something like an average looking banana clown. Okay. Those things are beautiful when they hatch out, right? Orange, yellow, purple, great pattern, especially if you've got something that's very symmetrical with a bald back and really good, you know, broken look. Imagine that fired up, electrified, cleaner, better, like more symmetrical, even better than what you think is possible. And that's the potential that lies within any animal when you're able to go for a look, right? I just think that's cool. Like Volta ball pythons are the coolest thing on the freaking planet. If I was to ever buy another ball python, I would have a hard time walking past the Volta ball python on a table for sale at a show if I could get like confirmed like background on it in some fashion.
I don't know if I've ever seen a Volta in person at a show.
They're huge.
It's very rare, but you would know they're the ball
huge.
pythons. I feel like the head is the dead giveaway. They're not just big; their head is significantly bigger than a
their head. They look like somebody took a ball python, stuck a bike tire in it, pumped it up to like 3 times the size, took an African rock python, put that's head on it, and then was like, here you go. And they're badass. They are huge. They're so freaking cool. I just think if somebody made that their lane, they wouldn't necessarily, be warranting like thousands of dollars for their, F3 selectively bred, cleanest, biggest normal ball pythons, but maybe they would, or at least they'd get a ton of respect for doing it, and then they could build on that and go, farther. Who knows?
I think that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was about to say, and then you just popped this up from John on here. I think we're missing also the point that we can say this all we want, but many people don't have that vision. For some of us, we do, because that just naturally, we're able to envision things before they're sitting in front of us. Okay. Fair. A lot of people don't have that. And to be fair, I think that's part of this too. They may love the animal, but they don't have the vision or the direction or the know-how to go where, how to do what you're speaking of, how to line breed that, or how, they just don't even have the vision to start with. So to be fair, I think there is some of that,
It's true.
And I think you guys have a very good eye because you're working in species that's all there's ever been. Right. I can tell you it's very similar. I grew up in a household where my parents were into dogs and dog shows and all of that. It's very similar to me, right? It's not, you have species of a dog, but then you line breed to bring traits out and to make them better, right?
Yeah.
I'm used to that. I grew up with that. I get it. A lot of people, that's just not, this is easier. Take gene A and gene B and make, a combination of that.
Let me ask this question. Do you think that that's like not taught? Like, I don't know if taught's the right word, but like, I don't necessarily see a lot of people putting forth that message. I agree with you, right? You can't be a leader if you don't have any followers, right? So you have to have kind of both, right? And I don't know if certain people even want to do that, right? They just want, they like certain things, and they just want to recreate an orange dream, desert ghost something. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that we have a couple, there's so many levels to the problem. I think one is like today in our modern age, I think that instant gratification with everything that we have in life is, I can hit a button and there's food at my door. I can, like we talked about earlier, I can control my tank from here. If I want to talk to somebody in Australia, I hit send and they're talking back to me. And it's just like, it's this constant instant thing. So I don't know if people are patient enough, even just like look at, me and Riley were talking about this with shorts on YouTube, right? I do all these YouTube videos and they get, this amount of likes. I do a short and now all of a sudden there's like, like, what the hell? Like, and is the attention span not there? Or people just, they want just a little bit and they want to move on, that kind of thing.
That fast form, quick, boom, 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 quick pace and everything.
And I think that I think older keepers like I'm 48, but like my age has to think like, okay, like we're the younger people coming in, they're looking at things from a completely different perspective. It's completely different than our world. They don't know a world without an internet. They don't know a world without Facebook. They don't know any of those things. And I think that has to come into part of the situation. I think sometimes with, and again, this is just my perception. I'm not saying that this is real. So you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but like the perception I get, at least when I was getting into ball pythons, was more about having your own business. I think we talked about this before we started. It's like having your own business, and how cool would it be to have my own business and do something that I like. This is cool. Like, I can really get into this because I could be my own boss. I can do all these things, and I just think that now I'm losing my train of thought because of what William said.
Right on, Will.
Damn it. Shit, I
Look,
lost
he's
it.
blushing.
I lost it. Thanks, William. No, I guess like you're selling the bit like, and I think this is why when I see ball python content, it's more or less based upon, the genes or the business side of it, or how can you be more efficient, or like, what are you doing as far as like, what equipment are you know what I mean? It's not really, I don't hear a lot of people talking about natural history of ball pythons, right? And that's fine. That's fine. But like, I think both sides have to understand that like you're not into that. Like you don't care about that. You care about this. You're playing mad scientist to make cool snakes. And then, I mean, I'm not necessarily a morph guy, say today with carpets as much as I was in the past, but you can't tell me that, that it's not cool to hatch something out that you never saw before. That's a high that's like freaking amazing, right? So I totally get it, and I think once people start doing that and they see that, now they're like, holy shit, this is awesome.
I think what happens is we get so set in one train of thought that the other train of thought almost seems polarized in that sort of dedication, even if it's just on one project on a surface level. But the two can exist together. I have 100% only morph focused projects. The albino citrus tiger stuff, I have goals that are strictly morph based for that.
Yeah.
Which those are stunning, sir. Absolutely freaking stunning. Just
thank you. Hopefully I'll make a few more this year. Female's already given me the pre-list, so I'm watching her. But then there's projects where, I'm not putting any morphs together. It's wild type animals. It is selective breeding at its finest. And I love it because I can do the two hand in hand at the same time. So I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive, but I also think if you want to be mutually exclusive and be the guy who's known for only selective breeding in one vein, you'll be very successful.
I think for me, I just got tired of the morph game, right? To me, I have nothing against the morphs. Well, and we're talking carpet pythons, but like I just got tired of like I have to do things that I don't want to necessarily do. Like for ball pythons are what, 2 years? Female is 2 years old before you start breeding them, right?
In the best case scenario,
is that right? 2 to 3. Yeah. Carpets to me 4 to 5.
4 to 5.
Right? So you're looking at a longer time frame. Yeah. And like, people in the earlier days used to push that, and I don't know. I'm not comfortable doing that, and I would always be on the short end of the stick when it came to producing the more first. So if somebody else has it, now all of a sudden, and the price is cut in half, and then the price gets cut in half again. And when you're dealing with such a smaller niche market like carpets, it's not as easy when you could probably not have this issue in ball pythons because it's such a huge market.
Yeah, I think the nature of our beast versus the nature of their beast is why we have some variation. Yeah. So, it's an interesting point. So there's two things that I wanted to bring up. One, and we can expand on this a little bit after I go into the second point, but I wanted to bring it up so it doesn't leave my mind. Eric, let me know if you agree with me, but over the years, as there has been developments in the Morelia world with morphs, lines, breeders coming and going, things like that, all of this involved, there sort of is like this arbitrary unspoken cap on the price of like the newest of new, the most groundbreaking, like brand new morph to hit the States from Paul Harris, over in UK, because he had it first, and now it's just finally getting to Nick, and so it's just finally hitting here. But no matter what, I can't say I've ever seen a realistic post from a breeder or importer Nick or anything more than like 4K groundbreaking stuff, like 4K period. You don't really see any too much fluctuation from that. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe in the earlier days, obviously when it was still importing and you were getting the mailing lists and only like 2 people had them, then things were like 7,500, 10 grand a pair, whatever, because it was, just made to order sort of thing. But in my era with the online sales and everything being digitized, I don't see anything groundbreaking or new ever coming out splashing above $4 grand. And maybe that's just my perspective. So I always found that interesting because we seem to almost cap ourselves for no reason other than that's just where we've all sort of landed as far as what the community is realistically interested in investing in a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with. Yeah, I would say that's probably right. I mean,
so I've always thought that was weird.
I paid was 5,000.
Yeah. So it's we don't ever touch those $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 when Sunset was brand new or all those things. We've never had that crazy groundbreaking more than a down payment on a house type of level investment for a snake. No judgment or whatever, it is what it is. But so that was my first point. I've always been mindful of that. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up in regards to the lack of vision or creativity that maybe some of the newer breeders bring in. I've always looked at the community as a whole and tried to just always pay attention to stuff. And one of the things that I sort of developed over time was that there seemed to be this 3-year hump, like a speed bump at 3 years for at least within the Morelia world. But I sort of over time started looking at everybody else to see if it applied, and it loosely applies. But there's this 3-year hump when you get into, you catch the bug, the fire of oh, I'm super into snakes and I love this. And I found this world of keeping and breeding and the retail stuff. And I can breed, I can do this fun stuff and whatever your motives are, regardless, there's a 3-year hump that you have to get over. And if you can stick it out for 3 years of falling on your face, tripping over your own feet, realizing you're not going to make money right away, spending more money and investing and not getting any return, and having the novelty wear off every single animal purchase and and you go through those learners lumps and beginner, trip ups. If you can get past year 3 and still have that motivation and that fire, and you're still hungry for it, those are the people that stick around. Those are the people that tend to have a great trajectory. Those are the people that, regardless of what their trajectory is, they tend to enjoy it, figure it out, and have a great time, and ultimately be a positive contributor in the long run. But my goodness, when Facebook groups and everything were really the rage 5, 6, 7 years ago, you could watch people burn out in a calendar easily. New time, people coming in, going, boom, boom, boom. By December, they're having a fire sale, selling out all their racks wholesale, literally out of the game in less than 3 years.
That's 60% of the ball python community as we speak.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's exclusive to ball pythons. It did happen in everything. Everything.
Yeah. But I'm saying it's, yeah.
So I always found that interesting because that wasn't something that anybody told me prior, anybody pointed out to me. I sort of observed that trend on my own, and years and years ago I would preach that if you can get past your 3-year mark, you earn your belt, you know what I mean? If you can get through that and you still love it, you still love the grind of cleaning up shit and getting snake poop under your nails and having a snake's tail miraculously glow into the armpit of your shirt and then poop down all in your side yourself when you're out at a show for 1 weekend and you have no change of clothes for the next 9 hours. If you love that and you love doing it and then coming home and doing it and then never stopping, holidays, rain, snow, or sunny, then you will get past that 3-year mark. Don't force it. If it's not for you, don't force it.
Right. Then you are mentally ill enough to do this.
Yeah. Then you are a psychopath, self-abusive, glutton for punishment, like all 4 of us you see here.
Yes.
We should probably just make videos about what it's really like. I mean, I think that might take care of this whole issue.
I mean, if you want your YouTube channel to get as little of views and subscribers as mine, then do that.
P-Rod, you got killer content, dude. You really
You know what? I will say I'm working the system, man. Everybody's trying to be TikTok and use those short form videos. You put something flashy, black and yellow or gold or pretty bright colors in 15, 20 seconds with a nice tune, you're going to get 1,000 views in 30 seconds. I'm sorry. I'm selfish, whatever you want to call me. But I would love to share that info with everybody, because if you want to get noticed, that's literally the recipe right now. But the whole YouTube channel thing that I started, because I'm quite an introvert, and forcing myself onto YouTube actually pulled me out of my skin, and then traveling throughout the state for the reptile hobby pulled me out of my shelter quite a bit, because when I was in Santa Barbara, I had a really bad incident with the police, where a schizophrenic across the street who didn't even live there called the police and made up some crazy accusation about like somebody's girlfriend being beat or some crazy shit. And I was in the apartment with my then girlfriend and this other couple that lived with us. And they came and basically kicked down the door, beat the shit out of me, like knee in the neck sort of thing, face in the concrete, cuffed me, all my roommates, the whole thing, and then made it all up afterwards, deleted the tapes. There was no report of all this stuff. I had PTSD for a couple of years from this stuff. So I was as clamshelled as you could get. And then I found this reptile hobby, like maybe a year or so after, like, cause I'd already kept snakes and I had lizards in the house, but I didn't know anything about this layers of hobby. And then it forced me to literally, I drove myself to my first Pomona by myself and went by myself and like pulled myself out of it. So like this hobby is a lifesaver. And so all of the division is just kind of silly, but yeah, I don't know, man, this stuff is way too much fun. And there's so much good stuff in it out there that, like, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but
not to cut you guys short, I've got to get going. I've already went way past my time.
Appreciate you hanging out. Yeah, man. You mentioned that earlier. I was like,
that's all right.
Looking at the time, I'm like, I'm not going to say anything. Nathan's having a good time. Maybe he didn't really have to go.
Well, you know how I am. We've pulled plenty 4-hour lives here, buddy. So
I've done that once or twice.
Yeah.
But it's great talking to all you guys. And
likewise.
Hopefully we'll all catch up again soon.
Absolutely. Right. Have a great evening.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Oh, Nathan, don't forget. Let me know about the cage cards. If
I'll call you when I get to the office tomorrow.
Okay, that way I can let Robert know, because he seemed kind of confused that it didn't work. So,
okay then.
So let me know.
Talk to you tomorrow. Take care, guys. Everybody have a good night.
All right, man.
All right, later, bro. All right, and then there were 3. But no, like, I'm trying to think of where, like, I do. All right, I know this kind of backtracks a ways. I did have this one comment start. RSB had said about every butterfly is pretty and all that, but trying to moralize the existence of a monetarily low end animal is silly. I don't think it's that. We're not saying that. I guess
there's a lot to unpack in that statement.
Yes, my thought is that my concern is why did we make the normal so low end and I don't want to say demonize it, because that's not the right wording, but anyway, I'm going to run with it because I suck at wording things, and forgive me, everyone. But like I feel somewhere along the lines we did demonize the normal, and I'm sorry, but a normal, like if you hit a normal, okay, like Riley had said earlier, it's okay to feel disappointed because you totally missed out on the odds of like 8 other genes that were probably in that pair.
Yeah, that's 100%. Fine. That's normal. We all, dude, Eric and I get the same thing when we're breeding stuff. If there's even more, if we're not involved, like I could go for stripes, and if I got no stripes, I'm gonna be pissed.
Damn it.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah.
But my thing is like, I don't like having that feeling that, I either too many people I think have that mindset of, if you have a normal, you either gotta basically give the thing away or you can only charge $20 for it.
Mm-hmm.
That to me, like you had said earlier, Riley, it's that snake's worth more than $20 in my opinion.
I think it's the mindset. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but like,
no, you're good, dude. You're good.
I think it's just the mindset of when we're looking at it from the outside in. It's like when you're making, I don't even know if I'm going to say this right, but like if you're making arguments that it's not about money and you love the snake, but yet you can't appreciate the normal variety that nature intended this snake to look like, you should probably do a little self-reflecting in why that is. And it's not to say that you may come up with, I think it's, to my point earlier, I just wish that people in the reptile hobby would just be honest and straight ahead with their motives. I don't think that like they pretend like they're this, but they're really this, Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense. Like if you're saying in one breath, oh, it's not about the money, I don't do this, I love the community and the species and all, but I don't even like the way that species looks in the wild
without it.
Yeah.
What? That doesn't mean you have to have them, but like to make them seem like they're just throwaway trash snakes, just, I don't know. It's hard for me to, probably Riley's in the same boat. It's hard for us because of where we're coming from with carpet pythons. It's just like, well, man, when I went to Australia, I didn't give two shit. I really think that for me, going to Australia multiple times really influenced me moving away from the morph and more into the wild type. Right. And I think that if like, and again, like, I know going to Africa is not the easiest thing in the world, but like, do you think that your average ball python morph breeder even has a desire to do that? Whereas like in the carpet python world, we want that. We want to see that. It's just coming from a different angle, and it just seems strange that it's I don't know. Help me out here, Riley.
No, I fully agree. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, the honesty thing is a very valid point too. Especially, it's quite timely and topical right now because I've been hearing and seeing rumblings in the ball python sector of the world where the term enrichment has now become a naughty trigger word for some folks.
We were just talking about that before.
Yeah, it's become quite a divisive word. And I've been thinking about that for the last week or so. I've really been sleeping on it and kind of just rolling that around in my head and thinking about it a lot. And I think what it ultimately comes down to is there's a growing but underlying stigma against the breeders or keepers who do a minimalistic style and keep in quantities from the people who prefer to keep things naturalistic, go above and beyond. Nobody's wrong, nobody's right sort of thing. From my end, I'm just saying that's my perception. And what I think it's grown into is a bit of a soapbox to stand on for a bit of attention, whichever side you find yourself on. And I don't think either side believes anything that they're saying, because I don't think either side understands what enrichment is. At the definition of what enrichment is some sort of environmental stimulus, object, or thing that elicits a natural behavior in the animal, whether it be positive or stressful. Acute stress is still enrichment. So yes, throwing multiple hides, texture scents, decking out plants, tubes, colorful shit all over your enclosure, it could be considered an enrichment. But the thought process behind it is where enrichment really lies. What are you trying to elicit behaviorally out of your animal? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you measuring and observing that? Now, all that being said, that's just a background definition sort of thing, just to lay it down. If you don't want to do that, that is fine. The people who are all about that need to stop attacking those folks. And the people who are super enrichment forced, you know, you don't feel like you need to do that. Okay. You don't have to do that. If you want to, good on you. If you want to keep minimalistic, good on you. If you want to keep naturalistic right in the middle, good on you. There's room for all of the above, right? Right? Can we all agree on that? There's room for all of the above, right? There's financial and economic factors that have to be taken into consideration. So if somebody comes into my place and is like, I can't afford to do bioactive and UV lights and all this stuff, am I going to shame them and tell them they should not keep that snake? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And all of this is just, it just reminds me of the biggest thing. You're paying attention to what somebody else is doing. Why?
Yeah.
Pay attention to what you're doing. Yep. Stay in your lane. Focus on your own self. And through that, you can project your positive ideas and your thought process on how you do it and help other folks grow. The cutting people down, the making fun of, creating memes about enrichment or just, you know, being so enrichment forced that you're shoving it down somebody else's throat on the other end of that spectrum is not okay. Let people keep their snakes how they want to keep their snakes.
Yeah. This reminds me of, so in the early days of NPR, right, there would be drama that would happen. And I felt that I had to, talk about it, or maybe I had an opinion about it, or, you know, it obviously led to people listening, right? So then you sort of get into this thing where, am I doing this? And I see this with, like, I see this a lot, and this is sort of like, maybe where I was upset with the mutation creation response to, Liam's statements, because I said this on Carpets and Coffee. I think I have nothing against the guy. I don't even really know him. I watched some of his stuff. I thought he did something on UV with snakes, and he talked about it. And I thought it was very interesting, right? It's something else for me to put in the back of my mind to think about. This is something when I want to add. I don't care if Riley has it. To Riley's point, right? And he doesn't care if I have it. It's just, am I going to do this for me and what I have going on, right? It doesn't 100%. Make a difference, you know. That's not what it's about. I'm being open-minded to what this person is saying, and making my decision based off of what I know and what my observations are, and is this something that I want to apply into what I'm doing? I think that I decided to make, so an example would be this, right? In the early days, I think it's probably a bit of jealousy, if I'm being honest, is like we were so jealous of what the ball python world had, and like how popular they were and how easy it was, and all these morphs that they had. And it felt like, you know, well, why don't you like these carpet pythons? You know, I don't understand why you don't like these carpet pythons. And what I learned is that I'm not going to, and I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. Like, and I decided, and I told Owen that I said, no more negative talk about ball pythons in order to make carpet pythons look better. And I think that if I really believe that carpet pythons are the coolest python out there, then I should just be able to talk about them and win you over, rather than knocking something else down in order for you to like what I'm doing. And I think that the reptile world has become about this drama stuff. And I see these podcasts, and I've talked to Riley about this, like, oh my God, like we've been doing this for the longest. We're the longest running reptile podcast
in the world ever since humanity existed, right? Since Cro-Magnons walked this earth, since human speech existed,
right? And I feel like I see new people come in and it's all about the drama. And people are attracted to that. You know, it's the Jerry Springer effect. You know what I mean? It's like it's that whole like, oh, you know, we got to. I see the car crash and I don't want to look away, like that kind of thing. And I can't do that, man. That's just not my gig. And I'm okay with. I would rather have 1,000 loyal followers than, you know, have millions of followers because somehow I sold out and I have to knock somebody else down that's into the same thing that I am. We might not agree on it, right? But I can't tell you, every time I talk to somebody that I don't agree with, that's where I learn, right? Because you know, conversations where I'm able to talk to somebody like we're talking now, we're not yelling at each other, we're not freaking out. We, you know, we might not agree on certain things, but you say something, I ask the question, then Riley comes back and he's asking a question, and now he's saying, you know, and here the conversation goes, and then you're saying stuff about the perspective of the ball python world that I'm not aware of, right? So now I'm like, oh, okay, let me take a step back and let me say maybe I wasn't right in my thoughts in that. You know, that's why I'm sort of asking questions. Well, I'm trying to come across like I'm asking questions about those things, not trying to be, you know, facetious about it. But I think that you know, I don't know. I don't understand why we have this need to knock something else down. And that's sort of what I was upset with the mutation creation thing. It's like he didn't come on and debate Liam's points with facts, data, or things that he's experienced. He just took shots at him. He just made fun of him. Like,
which was really, it was unusual because I actually think Billy's quite a calculated individual, and I think part of that comes into this phase that the world, the niches, we're starting to, like, people are embarrassed to admit that they're wrong or that they just don't subscribe to the progress. It's okay. It's okay to keep things in racks. That's the other side of that is people need to stop attacking people who keep in racks. Like that bullshit. That ship sailed a long time ago. Shut up. If you bash racks, I will short of burn you down. You know, you don't exist to me anymore because that's so close-minded on the other end of the spectrum. But I couldn't agree more with what you were saying, Eric. Like that, bury your head in the sand, pretend like it's not happening, and just throw bombs at somebody is just, it's a closed-minded approach that does not. It's weak, and it is not progressive. It is stale. It is plateaued. It is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm okay doing the bare minimum sort of mentality. Not that he's doing the bare minimum. Billy, you're a great person. I like what you do, but I don't know him personally. I just saw this snapshot, so it's not. But I think his response is justified, because if you put yourself in his position, he probably feels like he's being attacked by the 99%, the 99% being the 1, 2, 3 snake keepers that do everything in naturalistic bioactive. They are not breeders. They don't understand the position he's in with the amount of animals that he keeps and the economic factor that he has to factor in. He has to. There's a reason the folks in Canada where he's at or where he exports to are able to get his snakes at an affordable price. It's because he keeps the economics in mind and focuses on that. Now, does that mean that it is the best? No, but it's not the worst. He loves his animals. He definitely cares for his animals. So like, it's okay to be afraid of progress and change, but to make fun of that progress and change is not okay. And then to attack the guy who's still trying to figure out and process that is equally not okay. I don't know if anybody's attacking him or not. I'm just saying, like, both sides of the coin play neutral. I'm Sweden right here.
Me too.
So I get exactly what you're saying. I mean,
so I just think there's so much room for growth and progress. And I think what people need to recognize is it's okay to be like behind the 8 ball a little bit in research and progress, because research and progress is endless. It's not an end game. It's not a fine line. It's not a finish line. It's always going. And Eric is famous for saying this recently, as he's been morphing his collection and how he keeps. You can't just turn the ship in one day. You've ever been on a cruise? You know how long it takes to turn a ship around full 180 degrees? It takes time, right? It is a process. It is slow. It is steady. It is calculated. You can't just flip a bitch. I would love to gut this place and fill it with $15,000 worth of cages and stuff, but is that realistic? No, it's incremental. It takes time. It takes process. Now, the other thing is that does not mean the old way of doing things is now therefore invalid, i.e. racks are no longer invalid. If we see this other goal on the horizon, that is not the case either. There's a place for both. So I just think we're at this progressive, nuanced point within the reptile world's growth, and it's kind of scary and it's uncertain, and people are still trying to make sense of their opinions and beliefs on what they are told is a fence they have to pick sides on, and they don't have to pick sides on. You just have to apply it to you and your situation, and that is the long and short of it.
I want to touch Billy, because I love Billy. Billy, if you're watching this, no one here is bashing you or attacking.
Never.
No.
We are not. We are above bashing. We are constructive criticism.
Has one of the biggest hearts. He does. Personal mentors, whether or not he realizes it or notices it. I mean, hell, the man even gave me a birthday gift to put towards purchasing some of my enclosures for my carpet pythons.
Whoa, that's big.
Billy was Billy means a lot to me. So, and I think a lot of Billy's reaction to that video and during that live that he did was just pure passion.
100%.
I get that, but I
think that was the big.
Let me ask this question. I understand that. I get that. But I think as content creators, if you want to call us that, whether it's a podcast or a YouTube or whatever, I would have had that discussion not on a YouTube channel. Does that make sense?
Sure. Not live either.
And not live, because you're going to say things that are taken the wrong way. I've done it a million times on podcasts where I said something and it's not what I meant, and that's not how it came across to people. I'm just trying to say, and in fairness to Billy, right? In fairness to his side, I think that the what would we call them? What's that? Naturalistic,
naturalistic
type of keeper. I don't even know if that's the word, but the two sides, right? So the side that's saying you should keep it naturalistic, I think sometimes they come across as preachy, and I think that
100%.
You're sort of saying that, and this is why I've sort of. To Riley's point, it's you can't just change everything. You can't just see, especially somebody with that level of animals, even if he wanted to change. He
had 5 animals to go from 5 snakes in a rack to 5 bioactive. It's a couple $1,000s of investment retail. Sorry, that's not easy to do.
Right. And I totally understand the feeling of being attacked and why he would feel like that part, this community of us, the breeders, or whatever you would call it, the ball python community, is being attacked. I just don't agree with the approach that they're taking, because then they're just as bad as the other side, and nothing ever gets fixed. Nobody ever comes to a common ground to say all right, you do your thing, I do my thing. Here's a perfect example, right? Me and Riley have talked about this with the Jag, right? I'm done with the Jag. I've been done with the Jag because it's not for me. But that doesn't mean that you two guys that love Jag, to me, they're beautiful. They're amazing. And Riley had this tiger Jag that, that he lost a while back, and it meant a lot to him, and he wanted to replace it. And there was one on there that was like that. I'm telling him to buy it because I know that, for 2 reasons. One, should that be lost in the hobby because I don't like it? Right? Am I the
Yeah.
one that's going to be the one that decides that this should be not in the hobby and this should not be the way that it is? No, who am I? I'm a nobody. I don't have to tell Riley what he's doing in his collection, but I know how much it means to him, and I know how excited and passionate it is about like making sure that those things are held on to, because unlike the ball python world, we don't like, once it's gone, it's gone. You know what I mean? It's gone.
No
It's
joke,
not
Eric.
there anymore.
No joke, Eric. I'm like still concerned that she might be the last of her caliber and kind. Like,
Probably.
somebody could make them if they spent the next 20 years working at super reduced tiger jags, but who the hell is going to do that with the stigma on
Right.
jags now? So
Right.
yeah,
That's
you're
right
100% spot on.
See, that's right there as well. Actually, hold on, before we dive into that, Creative Genetics wants to know, what was the point of the video that said tubs are not right? It was about the enrichment stuff, and
Yeah.
they brought in about on how, like, I'm not gonna lie, I did not watch all of the video segments or anything. The gist of it was, from what I did see, was breeders keeping them in tubs when they go to these pet owners. That's why some of these pet owners are having some issues.
Yeah.
They
have to reacclimate into a different style of keeping. Yeah. No, I have to deal with that on the front line from the shop all the time. We breed these animals, we raise them up in racks, and then I have to transition them into a naturalistic style of keeping a couple weeks ahead of time before they go to somebody else's home. Sometimes they don't have that luxury. Some snakes do just fine. And Eric and I talk about this a lot too, as far as like how we've sort of like, and I've actually also talked to Garrett Hartle about this too, how like we should market these animals as pets and not say like keep them in this tub. Like maybe for a baby, you start it out in a tub, because babies, let's be real here, babies do really well in tubs. But as they get older, teach them their natural history, teach them all that stuff so that they can be successful in keeping them in a nice display, because they can. And Garrett brought up a great point when I was talking a month ago. He and I were talking on the phone, and he's like, man, I saw this company that was advertising for a 1 tub rack, and he was like, that is so wrong. Like that's where we've gone off our way, because the one pet keeper, they want to look at it, they want to experience it. The tub deprives them of so much of that experience. Now you could sit here and tell me till you're blue in the face that, well, that's exactly how they live, like a hole in the ground. It's just like the tub. And then I will say you may be partially correct, but go tell me why the ball python in my living room lives in a 40-gallon with bioactive live plants, UV light, a basking light that turns off at night, and drainage layer and all that shit. And he's bred for me and produced and done all these things that he should, behaves like a normal wild animal, perfect sheds every time, eats frozen thawed since he was born, never touched a live rat. Tell me why everything I just told you goes against all of the preconceived, what are they called? Care sheets, online about how you keep these things. That animal right there literally just destroyed every argument that could be brought against me on that. You have to be open-minded. You have to approach these animals and how you're marketing them to people based on what your audience is. A breeder is going to keep something different than a keeper who just wants a fun pet. And it goes across the board. I mean, this is how it is.
Yeah. And I also like to think, like, personally for me, like, all my racks, the tubs are like polycarbonate completely clear or semi-clear. So one, because like we were saying earlier, I like to be able, when I'm feeding, I like to know if that snake's right there, for one.
Sure.
2, I also like to be able to walk in, and if they're at the front of the tub, I get to see them. I don't have to disturb them, but I can still see them. Now, granted, every time I walk in here, the carpets are the first thing that my eye goes to off the start, no matter what.
It's because they're the best.
Dude, like, I will say this, hands down, I don't care what morph ball python you're working with, that carpet will take my attention every time over any ball python. They're just breathtaking. That's all there is to it, folks. I'm sorry. don't hate me, everybody, but it is true.
But
know,
what people aren't going to realize is that you broke down that fence. You don't exist with that fence between you. You don't ride that. Well, I have to choose a camp, because that's nonsense. You don't have to. You can like whatever you like.
Exactly.
Keep what you want.
I think here's an example of like where academic and people that keep, right? So like I've seen this many times, and Riley, you can probably attest to it as well, right? So here's a paper that comes out that says that this species is different than this species, and this would probably be a better example, right? They went and they did this study on Antaresia pythons in Australia, and they just sort of lumped a whole bunch of stuff together, right? And I think sometimes that when you're coming at things from an academic point of view, you're not looking at what's right in front of you. And I think that the problem with these two worlds is what we said earlier. Is like, you know, a lot of ball python breeders, let's say, they have 50 plus animals, right? Is that probably the norm? Is that, I would say, you know, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so.
So you're dealing with you're seeing a lot in a small amount of time. So you're actually seeing what the snake is doing. Granted, you're keeping it in certain ways or whatever the case would be. So there are limitations to that, I suppose. But like an academic is going to come along and say, well, you know, they're doing this, this isn't right because they can't do it. I'll tell you from a carpet point of view, right? And this again is about being open-minded. And I said this on Carpets and Coffee when I first was really getting into having a lot of carpets. I used to never see them perch. And the reason is because I was using one of those shelves, right? So I'm using a shelf for the perch.
I know where you're taking this,
perch. Right. So I immediately said, okay, well then carpets don't perch. That's just bullshit that people's told me because I'm not seeing my snakes perch. So I'm going to keep them in racks, right? So I start keeping them in racks. It is not make believe that their prehensile tail, right, didn't function the same way as some snake that's on a perch. So I think what that side is trying to say is that maybe there are limitations to keeping the snake in this type of box as opposed to that type of box, right? That doesn't mean that it's that I guess that it's wrong to a certain extent, but like when I saw that, when I started to have certain factors come into play and it added up, it's like, okay, I have to change this because I'm not doing it right. Not because all of a sudden naturalistic enclosures became the cool thing to do and all the cool kids were doing it. It's because I realized what I'm keeping is not right. And I'll tell you where I came to this realization that, you know, what I'm doing is wrong. And is that when I was in Darwin and I'm looking at a Darwin carpet up in a tree that's like 50 feet up in the tree, it's not perched on a flat thing. It's not perched like a chondro where it's draped over. It's perched to where one coil's here, another coil's out here. It's like they're on multiple spots on the branch, right?
Yep.
Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just doing it wrong. They're not using it because I'm not giving them something that they want to use. It's no different than keeping them on this flat bottom. Why would they go to this flat top? Immediately, as soon as I put perching in it, the right correct perching, immediately the animal's perched. And the other part of it is that my diamond pythons, which are here, which have those perching available to them, is way different than the animals that I still have in, you know, I have bigger racks, but still in those racks because they're not utilizing that. They're not utilizing that prehensile tail. And, you know, I don't need somebody to come along and tell me that. And I'm not going to be mad if somebody does say that. You know, if somebody comes along and says you shouldn't keep carpets in racks. Yeah, you shouldn't. You shouldn't keep adult carpets in racks, I guess. You know, can you do it? Yeah, you can. Have I done it? Yeah. Do I still do it? Yeah. I you know, so if I had my way, would I have it that way? No, I wouldn't.
Bingo.
I would have it a different way.
That's the difference.
So I'm slowly trying to move away from that, but I can't just say like, okay, these racks here, they're going to go and I'm just going to change the cages. So what can I do? Okay. So maybe I can make perches in that tub that make sure that they can do it in a way. And I think this goes to Riley's point of what is enrichment, right? You can make a perch in a way. I think, yeah.
I've got a bunch ready to rock.
You can fit inside those tubs that will work. And ultimately you're making the snake a happier snake, right? I guess if you, I don't know that for true. And the other thing about mutations is that I think a lot of people forget, and I learned this the hard way. And I'm sure that people that have bred morphs and stuff, like morphs are like broken genes of the natural
they're
form.
not supposed to survive.
Not supposed to be there. Nick Mutton always talks about how amazing it is that, especially with the ball python world, that there's so many that don't have issues, right? It should be that most of them do have issues, but there's so many that don't have issues. And, that's kind of a good thing. But I think the idea that you're just changing the paint job is just not 100% accurate. We have no idea what we're doing on the insides of the snakes. We have no idea what's happening. You're talking about feeding or this or that, or how they shed or how they breed or how long they live. We have no idea about any of that. This is all wide open to be studied and learned. We just assume that it's doing good, that it's good.
The tip of the iceberg on that is that the only evidence so far as I can tell, that has been actually researched has gone into the spider gene and why they have that wobble. And it basically comes down to that genetic expression while the embryo is developing in the egg does not fully develop that inner ear tissue that gives them the proper balance. And you see it in their movement, behavior, high heat, high stress, etc. And it can compound itself. It's the exact same thing in jag retics, jag carpets. You have a lot of these crossover genetics within pythons. The zebra genetics in jungles is the same as the batik gene in blood pythons. It's exactly the same. It's a patternless animal with a potentially kinked tail. Have you ever seen a super batik blood python? No. And I don't know if it's because it's just people have shied away from it or the market just isn't there. Or if outcrossing would help it like it does in the super zebras, but that's neither here nor there. The point is like these genes are deviations away from what Mother Nature has selected to be the most successful variation for that animal in its environment. And what's going on is essentially biology's experimenting with variations by rolling the dice to see, hey, can this improve it or does this make it better? Does it improve it or make it better? And leucistic comes along, boom, 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 in the wild type. No, they're more vulnerable to predation, gone. But we people find them, and so then we proliferate them in the hobby and things like that. So, but there's a reason why the majority, 98% of ball pythons in the wild aren't leucistic. It's because it's not successful for a natural history standpoint, right? But there, to Eric's point, there are some that have issues like that we're all very well aware of, and we avoid not breeding this to that and things like that. But yeah, that's a really good point, Eric. With the thousands of these technically broken genetics, we're very fortunate we don't see more issues.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you break all this down, what you're looking at is just different sides of this multi-sided coin or dice or whatever that is the reptile hobby. And so like you said earlier, you and I have probably both learned a ton tonight from listening to perspectives from the ball python, majority ball python mentality side of things that I definitely didn't consider because I don't sit on those subjects very often. And so I think having these types of open dialogue and conversation can really further the hobby in a way that is more monumental than the next best morph combination. Not that those aren't awesome, because I do want to put it out there that the fact that Justin is marketing and pushing and doing this, he's breathing life into that industry, that hobby that benefits the carpet python sector of things and everybody else as well. So in no way, shape, or form is this a negative or a bashing of the ball python. If anything, it's more like a compare and contrast of two sides of this same world that we all live in, and finding the common ground in there so that we can learn from one another. Because I'm not going to lie to you, lately I've really enjoyed kind of getting into some of the forefront of the newest morphs in carpets with the hypocoastals and things like that. And I really love that, but I also love the selective breeding of things. And because I get to tap into the ball python world at work a little bit, I kind of get to see the other side of that fence. And I can't say I don't enjoy it all. Maybe it's not something I'm going to keep. You know, Eric, this is another message that you've been proliferating for the last 12 years. You know, keep what really sings to you, keep what you love. And it's okay to like what other people keep. And it's understandable that we get that itch to maybe want to try and keep something because we feel their contagious passion for this species that they're all fired up about. And it's okay to like try it out and find out it's not okay for you or not the one for you. But like, yeah, really stand on your own two legs and find that species for you. And I mean, we've all seen it. You go to a show, the camaraderie between different people that keep and breed different species. It doesn't matter what you keep and breed. Like a good person's a good person and you connect with them. So like, that's the bottom line right there. So
I think the majority of the people that I consider my inner circle, very few of them keep carpets.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
Very few of them do.
Yeah.
I think Riley, Owen, you know, Nick, Justin, it's probably it. That's like, you know, that I talk to on a daily basis.
Yeah. Lucas.
You know,
yeah. A couple people. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, Lucas has just got a little bit of everything.
As Woma's now.
Lucas is
a guy now.
That's true. You're right. You're right. That's fair. That's fair.
He used to be the carpet guy, but
he has some carpets.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I hope that you know, having the perspective from the carpet python world helps people better understand where we're coming from, and maybe they'll take something from how we do things and apply it to how they do things. You know, I mean, you can we talked earlier about the gene, and you know, just if you're specifically into a gene, man, just run with that gene and just try to do the best that you can with it, you know, and try to, you know, be that person that has that everybody's going to want to come to for that specific morph, you know. I mean, that's the way you do it, man. That's the way you sort of get your little niche in a huge world. I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it is in the ball python world to go and stand out when you got you know, Justin and Ozzy and you know what I mean?
You've got John. I mean, there's like, for me, like Exanthic is a big thing for me. That's like my main focus. So John Degg is all basically like my, I don't want to say idol, but someone I highly look up to because he's, you know, the Exanthic king basically. But other than him, there's really nobody else that's really stands out Exanthic wise that's working with it. And like you were saying earlier with the spider stuff, Riley, you know, Spider got such this bad rap, and I love Spider. Like all of my spider stuff has zero wobble. I can pull out any one of these spiders, hold it by like the last third of its body, and it'll act like a normal snake. Like it doesn't corkscrew or do any of that goofy crap everybody thinks that they do.
Yeah, I've had one that was flawless as well, just like that. Bred her a couple times. Perfect animal.
Yeah, like I mean, I can't think off the top of my head how many I had. There's probably like 5 or 6 of them here, but every one of them is perfect. So like when people start trashing the spider or even the jag stuff, like it's like, you know, those are genes. Okay, yes, they have a flaw. But not, I've heard like not every jag has the flaw either.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to say it can be
Well,
bred out
every
of
jag
them.
has it.
They all have it. It's just
Yes,
like
they
some
all
are
have it.
so
Yeah.
low
Some don't
expression
show
you
it.
don't see it.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
yes.
they all have it.
Yes, yes. I guess that's the better way to put it. Yes, they all have it. It's just a matter of how, I guess maybe how bad it's expressed, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's like
I think layering genes on top of it probably adds to, in my experience, the more genes I put with a jag, the worse the jag became.
really
When I did jag, when I did jag to jag, terrible. Never would do that again. But here's the thing: good friend of mine, Mike Curtin, right? He was on
I
your
knew-
show. I watched it, and he was talking about how he does jag to jag. I guess in that's sort of, and maybe this happens in other parts of the reptile hobby, but when you're outside and we're kind of in our own lane and our own little spot of the hobby, and we're sort of like this tiny little niche of nerds that like snakes and trees, you know, it looks like you know, what am I looking for? You know, it's like if you feel this way about it, it's like you're arguing back and forth and you can't like get past the fact that, well, it's to what Riley was saying earlier, like which side of the fence are you on, right? And like I guess how I look at it is, and like not in all, I'm not saying that we have all great people in the carpet python world and everybody's great. We have our own fair share of assholes too, no doubt about it. You know, I think everything in the world does as well. But like the fact that he can do that and I can say what I'm saying, I don't hold no ill will towards him. He doesn't hold no ill will towards me. Life is good. We move on. And you're making beautiful snakes, man. It's just not my lane. It's just not my thing. I can't do it. To me, I made the decision that this is something I'm not going to do anymore. You know what I mean?
and that's like, I think that's where some people need to realize that, you know, like you just said, jags aren't your thing. You don't hold it against anybody else. There's a lot of people in the ball python community that, oh, you work with spider, and they actually, it seems anyway, I'm just saying how I feel. It seems like if you work with spider, there's people that will hold that against you. It seems it.
Yeah.
Like you feel like a slight, I don't want to say hostilities towards you, but like they're like, oh, you know,
They
you're
judge
working.
you. They
Yeah,
judge
How
yeah,
could you
exactly.
do
I guess
that?
it's the best way. They judge you on it.
Oh yeah,
And it's
100%.
You know, just because it works for me, and maybe if I had animals that were batshit crazy, that corkscrewed and acted stupid, like the one jag you had spoke about on Fry's episode of NPR, Eric.
Yeah. Yep.
If I were to
The,
experience a jag like that or a spider like that, okay, that might probably be enough to persuade my view on it, because from what you were describing, that was bad.
Yeah, it was too much.
Yeah,
It was
So
too
it's
much. I
like-
couldn't do it anymore, you know?
but I think a lot of people need to realize too that, you know, they're not all bad. They don't all exhibit the same symptoms.
Right.
You know, the original spider that came to the U.S. was an adult. So obviously the thing can survive in the wild.
Right.
You know, I'm assuming the original jag came from the wild. So obviously that survived with whatever issues it
If
may
they
have had.
don't.
I don't know because.
It came from captive breeding. Actually, it was a fluke
Here's
genetic.
the thing, though.
Oh, okay.
This is
okay.
the problem I have when it comes to these type of mutations, right? The problem I have with these type of mutations is the fact that people need to be straightforward about what's going on. Too often, they try to sell you something that, I mean, I can think of a whole bunch of them in the ball python world, but there's only really one. Well, there was the Granite too at one point, and a lot of people believe that was just super inbred because they would be hatching out without eyeballs and faces deformed and kinks and all this stuff. And Nick Mutton basically started to outcross them, and then proved, right, rather than and see, again, this is like the different mindset between the two worlds, right? I shouldn't say it that way. This is the
I know what you
mindset
mean,
in our world.
It
Right?
seems from our end.
This is our world and how we operate. It's like, okay, well, I'm not just going to go on hopes and dreams and feelings. I'm going to try to see if I can breed this out. And if I can, excellent. If I can't, okay, I tried. And now we know for sure that this is the way that this gene is. Well, guess what? He proved that that's not the case. It was just inbred. And when they did the first complete carpet python book, they did a genetic test and found that they were so inbred. They were inbred like crazy. And why were they inbred? They were inbred because it's a recessive gene, and it was about the drive to make the money. You know what I mean? That's what it was about. And when people don't want to be honest about that, I have a problem with that. Like, just be honest that this is what you're trying to do. I paid this amount of money for this snake. I want to recoup my investment. So this is how I'm going about it. And then if there's something wrong, you need to be straightforward with what's wrong, because now you got the next group of people that are coming along and you want to like try to make the hobby better. You know, you want people to be excited about the hobby, and you're going to have them spend thousands and thousands of dollars on something that you know is broken. And then you want them to be excited about it. Like, I don't know. That just seems like bullshit to me. You know, I don't, you know, just be straightforward. I don't understand why that's so hard. Just like, look, man, this snake, and Briley, you know this as far as Jags, right? This is another reason why I moved away from it, is because I got tired of having the conversation about the Jag, right?
100%.
I got tired of talking about the thing. Somebody coming along and there's a new person and they don't necessarily know, oh, I'm going to breed it out. No, you're not. You're not. This is what it is.
Yeah.
And like, I could tell you that you could and sell you the snake, but you know, you're getting mad at me because I'm being straightforward with you and telling you that no, you cannot do this. It's been tried. Trust me, we've been trying for about
long time,
15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You know? So
there's a reason why we know that through multiple examples that a Jag to Jag, the super form, the homozygous form, is a all white leucistic snake that does not develop lungs, cannot live outside of the egg for very long, and cannot and will not go further than that. It is not a roll of the dice. It is not an inbreeding situation. It is a genetic coding. This is where these broken genes double down and go so broken it is fucked beyond belief. And it baffles me that we have this anecdotal evidence across the board, and there are still people that will deny left, right, up, down, sideways that spider is a dominant gene and there is no super form. Wrong. It is the exact same as the jaguar gene. You get a dead white snake that doesn't develop lungs or leave the freaking egg for long. It's the same thing. So people lived on those hopes and dreams and sold out those lies for years when the spider stuff was still new and relevant. And now it's just neither here nor there. It's just kind of ridiculous, but it's a great example of disingenuine for ulterior motives, money-based behavior.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the whole super spider, super Jag, that's the type of deal. A friend of mine actually ended up producing a super Hingene Woma last season.
What?
The thing lived, for 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
You know, like the snake should have been DOA basically. I mean, it should not have existed by any means. It survived for like 3 or 4 months, but it was completely like not mentally there. He said it had like major corkscrewing issues. He had to help feed it. You know, he assist fed it, and I don't quote me on it, but I think he also had to help get it. You know, help take it to the water and stuff. But he tried to rehabilitate this thing to be able to survive, and eventually, I guess Mother Nature just finally won the fight over it.
Yeah.
But it was neat to see this snake that shouldn't exist.
Yeah. I think there was a leucistic Jag.
Yeah.
I think the longest one on record was like 30 days. It lived outside of the egg. It did not have a lung. It did not have lungs. Somehow it made it like there was a concavity. I've read descriptions about it. It didn't eat. It didn't do anything, but 30 days.
And then the other thing that this is something that actually impresses me with the ball python world is as far as their understanding of genetics. But sometimes I think that sometimes it goes above our pay grade as snake keepers or breeders, right? And like we think we understand, but we really don't. An example would be, I remember one time that somebody, I think it was in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, they hatched out a what would be a thought as a super jag, right? And we're like, oh shit, somebody actually did this. And look, it turned out though that it was a chimera, I believe. And the reason that it really wasn't a super jag, but because of again, I'm gonna butcher this, but because of the genetics on it, like from a geneticist, they're saying that, well, part of it is that, and part of it is not that. So that's why it's surviving the way that it's surviving. You remember that, Riley? You remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that was a brain teaser. That I had to read that a few times to like process that. But because it is two parts of two different things, it's almost like it diluted the dysfunction of one half to allow the whole thing to live based on this one half of this chimera expression. Is right. It hurts my brain to process, but I sort of get it.
Yes. I want to touch base here with what William said, that it's something that he was never a big fan of with ball python communities, doing the bare minimum with proving out projects, not seeing if there's longevity issues or fertility issues. That the big one with that, in my opinion, is the scaleless project. Because that, I mean, I don't, as far as I know, to this date, for as long as that's the scaleless project has been worked, and I think I heard the number of like 10 years or something like that, it's been working. There's not been a single scaleless female on eggs. Interesting. So that's kind of one of those, like, you know, everybody's started, you know, they started buying into the scaleless project, looking to make all these scaleless snakes. But once you make that scale, if you make the scaleless female, that's it. The game's over with that. Like,
well, wasn't that like
with that? You
caramel albino?
Wasn't that the desert too? I mean,
the
original desert.
Lethal. Yep.
That snake was amazing.
They're
like
beautiful.
That ball python,
I remember selling several of them.
Best, but you know,
yeah.
And here's the thing: like, why didn't the males survived, right? So why not?
The
why
females
not sell them as pets?
Well, that's exactly
you know
the
what I'm
angle.
Saying?
That's why it died off, is because people don't want to work with stuff that you're just selling as pets. Inevitably, it petered out.
Right.
Yeah.
It was a fire that put itself out.
It was Henry. Yes.
Yeah, Henry Purin. Yeah.
Canada, I think he was.
Yeah, he's the dude who is all about the scoria boas super early on too.
They have a neuro issue too, right?
Yes, they do. They have a lethal issue. You know what's funny is when you really mess with the amounts of black pigment on a snake, as Nick Mutton so eloquently put, you can't reduce black pigment in an extreme way without having some sort of effect on the brain development in that animal. It's just they seem to code the exact same part of the DNA. When you take an animal that has a lot of black and your goal is to reduce the melanin somewhere along the line, you are going to encounter neurologically tied issues to that sort of genetic sequencing. And think about it. Well, what is a jag? It's a reduced pattern. What is a spider? It's a reduced pattern. It's the exact same thing.
Brings up the yellow, takes out the black.
You take out the melanin, you bring that in. What did he say? He found out that the chemical cues that structured the melanocytes in the pigment happened at the exact same time as some of the neurological development. Something like that. Yeah, Nick has much more experience and research to back it and word it betterly. There you go. Better than I can. But bottom line is, if you want to dumb it down, make it like, so I can understand it. You start pulling the black out in a big way like that. You start pulling the brain out in a big way like that. So
that's the first time I've heard that. That's interesting.
Now that's different than albino because you're not removing the melanocytes. You're inverting their function. Yeah. But
Third Eye says, wasn't JD Constriction and Lone Star supposed to finally try breeding a scaleless female this year? I thought I saw them mention it and how they are going to document it so we can finally find out.
I would love to see it now that you brought that up. That'd be cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that I do not know anything about that. If that's what they're doing, that's very cool. I'd love to know
if anyone from those folks are watching and they do this, you should take it a step further and do maternal incubation with a scaleless female if you get it.
Leviathan wants to know, how does that affect bells?
So the pulling out the melanocytes again, the leucism, it's not removing the melanocytes. It's you have 2 copies of the genes that reside on the same loci of the DNA, and because they interact in such a dramatic fashion because of their allelic interaction or codominance, or how they work between one another, you get such a crazy expression. The melanocytes are still there. They're just like turned off. They're not inverted. They're turned off.
Right.
Think of these genes coding as like a knob on a dial, and you have 0, you have 100, and you have a few steps in between, but then you also have an inverse button. And that's kind of how this color pigment inheritance seems to make sense in my brain. So, yeah.
DNK says, I've heard cinnamon has issues as well. DNK, cinnamon has its own issues if you breed Cinny to Cinny.
Yeah, that duck billing thing.
Yeah, super cinnamons can have kinking issues. They can have duck billing issues. They can have no issues.
Yeah.
It's a roll of the dice. I will be trying it because I'm curious, because I produced a pair. What is it? It's a pewter leopard het desert ghost male. I'm going to breed it to a cinnamon het desert ghost. I want to see if a super cinny desert ghost isn't like a jet black, slightly higher iridescent snake or not. Just curious. I don't think one that I know of has been produced that I've seen. So I'm curious as to what it actually does look like. Now, if I get some really gnarly babies and issues with it, I won't try doing Cinny to Cinny again. It's just one of those, some people, they roll the dice and their pairings are okay. And I know some people, like, same with Black Pastel, sometimes there's issues, but there's lines that don't have issues. It's kind of,
So super cinnamon, that's like a solid, not black, but it's like a dark, solid snake.
Charcoal.
Charcoal.
Yeah, they kind of start out like charcoaly, blackish, but as they get older, it turns out basically just to be like a dark chocolate colored snake.
Gotcha.
And it's patternless.
Yeah, and it's patternless.
Patternless, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it reminds me of the super zebra stuff in a way.
Yeah.
Super zebras, it seems to be a relatedness issue, but it also seems to be part of a roll of the dice with the genetics that you get. Some variation of kinking in the end of the tail.
You also have the issue when you start to add genes to it, like for instance the albino super zebra, which would be an albino patternless carpet, right?
Yeah, you get crazy fertility issues in those clutches.
They don't seem to hatch.
Yeah, well, 5 years ago, I remember, or no, maybe it was more like 8 years ago or whenever it was. I was at a wedding with Todd, and we were sitting at a bench talking about the albino super zebra project. And I think the first viable albino super zebra had just been hatched. And he and I were talking about it, and he's like, there's no reason it shouldn't be genetically and mathematically possible, but for whatever reason, the compounding homozygosity of the zebra gene and the compounding homozygosity of the recessive albino gene doubling up, that it just really made shit wonky at the beginning, like some serious speed bumps to work through. Yeah. To me, it seems like it just needs, somebody's got to get that one first baby out there that's viable and then outcross the shit out of it.
Well, they had two, They had one in Australia that was produced, but I don't know what became of that. I think
Right.
it kind of disappeared into the darkness.
Which we know what that means.
And then there was one in the States, I want to say a couple of years ago. Yeah, he produced one. I don't know what happened with his. So
I'd be curious. Yeah, I'd be curious to find out. But yeah, you never know until you work the project, prove it out, try multiple times again. You know.
I think that was what William was saying earlier, right?
Yep.
Just
yep.
You know, like,
yeah. I mean, you got to prove out the mode of inheritance. You got to prove out what it is compatible with and not, and then you got to, you know, like sort of like double cross your own experiment. You got to like do it again and replicate it in a completely different way and see if it's still, you know, with these different factors in animals, and it's still a heritable, reproducible thing. Because anybody can, like what we were talking about the other day, Eric. I've got a black-eyed super zebra.
Right.
I could market that as a new gene.
Probably.
Or I could actually put in the work and find out if it's just a normal variation of this animal or if there is something going on.
Right.
And what that would take would be probably 2 decades of me breeding her back to siblings, mother, father, other siblings, breeding to them, trying to isolate where it's popping up in the normal jungles if possible, or the single gene zebras if possible. And I would literally have to get rid of everything and just focus only on that. And it might be a waste of time and nothing comes out of it. Or I could do the selfish thing and just make a few line of them and get rich quick, or, you know, so I say or think, you know, just be like, oh, market a new gene, and then like rip the rug out from under people and disappear and just be like, just kidding, you know? So.
Right. Well, here's something I want to ask you guys, touching on the super zebra thing. What about a super zebra ivory? Has anyone ever tried making that? Just because, like, you know, it goes back to my ball python thing with Xanthic and stuff. And Eric, you know how much I was talking to you about the gelatins and ivories and stuff like that too. Is that something like?
Well, the first ivory zebras were only made recently, right?
Yeah, I think Nick's probably a couple generations in at this point, but I think if there's anybody that's going to do it, it's going to be Nick. So is it possible? Yeah, I believe it's possible. I don't think that there'll necessarily be issues with that, because I don't necessarily look at the ivory the same way I would look at a zebra. Yeah, I guess it's a mutation, but it's more of a selectively bred type of phenotype rather than an actual mutation. It's not like it's what would you say? It's polygenic, I guess, I suppose,
yes.
Right? You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you'll have the same. I would say my guess would be that you won't have the same issues as like you would with an albino zebra, because you're combining those two genes as opposed to just making a black and white snake with a zebra.
Well, and you're also looking at 2 different genetic trajectories. The foundation and trajectory of the zebra lineage and the foundation and trajectory of the ivory stuff could be completely distinct from one another, so that at its first union you have 50-50 unrelated blood as best as you can to start with. So you could really have no issues potentially, as long as you do your due diligence.
What it would look like?
Who knows? It's never been made. I bet you it would be like an off-white, silvery, smoky gray, because super zebras get dark.
Yes, I agree.
See, that's also what I was kind of wondering as to what it would actually physically look like too.
Probably be an off-white.
Because I wanted the gelatins. I still think I want a pair of gelatins. But then as doing research and watching some other videos and stuff, I saw, it was a Dave Kaufman video, and he was touring someone's little small facility, and they had an ivory jungle from Nick.
Brandon Wheeler, yeah.
I think that sounds
Morelia house.
Yes, I think that was it. Yes.
Yeah.
And I saw this ivory jungle, and the thing was freaking pure black and white, and my jaw dropped. Basically dropped just like it did when I saw Mike's zebra that he showed off when he was on the live stream with me. Yeah. And I thought, it's like, oh shit. It's like, all right, maybe I need to step back here and think, do I want an ivory or do I want gelatin?
Both.
Probably. Yeah,
It'll probably end up being both. Yes, at some point.
But I feel you. It's a tough call. Yeah, those ivories, because Nick's got 75%ers.
Yeah.
In the zebras, he's obviously got the pure line ivories, but yeah, and he's 25 years into that project. It's only getting better.
From the brief conversations that we've had, I would say that you're probably leaning more towards the ivory situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gelatins are stunning in their own right and quite a slap in the face away from the yellow and black, but I think your high contrast xanthic loving eyes are probably more drawn to the ivory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because remember the gelatins have another level of color to them. They're not just black and white.
They're like they have like a grayish, greenish, silver.
Some of them are, some of them have like a green wash. Some of them that I produce have sort of a green camo type of color in the saddles. Some of them are black and white.
Okay. See, I actually have Midgard serpents. I grabbed their card.
Eric Kohler, yep.
They were set up next to Owen up there at Hamburg, and I was talking to him about it as well because he actually had some ivory males. And I thought, well, it's like I'm not going to just if I'm going to get an ivory, I'm going to get the female first and wait a year or two before I grab the male.
Smart.
But I was talking to him, and he was showing me some pictures of these gelatins that he has as well. And the one gelatin, I mean, from my untrained eye, looked just as black as white as what the ivory did. And it's like, wait a second here.
Well,
there's so much variation with them. It drives you just up the wall. But that's the thing, though. That's one reason why I think I'll still end up getting a pair of gelatins at some point in the near future as well, just because Pedro there from Funky Morelia, he warned me when I got my first carpet from him. He goes, it's the start. Just be prepared. You say it's just going to be one.
Yeah.
Pedro's
you just sit back and watch your room fill up with these things.
He does not mince words. He rips that Band-Aid off right away, doesn't he?
Yeah. And he's right, though. He's right through and through. I mean,
I think go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, my basis is ball pythons. But I'm already, like, this shows you how much in love with the carpets I am. I built a 12 by 14-foot room, in my basement. I'm now going to be ripping down part of this wall. I'm thinking, like, basically, like, right here over to the wall there. Then I'm going to rip down and do the other quarter of my basement. So half of my basement will be a snake facility. Just basically making room for these guys. Just because I already know, one, they take up more space. But it's like I see you, Riley, posting the popwood stuff, and like I've commented on several of your videos. It's like you gotta have one of almost everything at least.
That's why I have like 30 of them.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just like it's insane.
Yeah, there's too much variation.
I think the beauty of carpets in a nutshell for me, if I were to sell them, would be, or why people should be interested in them, right? Is like, number one, like they're not so in the wild. Like, okay, so there's been a lot of research done on carpets in Australia, and they respond well to human encroachment on the wild, right? They're able to adapt into whatever scenario that you're putting them at, right? And I did have somebody tell me that sometimes when I say that they're adaptable, that sometimes that leads to people thinking that they can be negligent with them. And I understand that perspective, and I want to make sure that people understand it's not like it's like, you can just ignore them or whatever, but in a way you probably could, and they're still going to be okay because that's just how they're wired, right? They always shed great. They eat great. They, maybe a couple of the subspecies sometimes have this tendency to be picky eaters and like getting them started. But once you get them going and they're going, that you're never going to have a problem with them eating ever, except for males going off food when it's breeding season. That's about it, right?
This guy just refused his
they're not
very first meals ever.
Pretty normal.
Night. I was like, You came up, looked at it. I'm like, just take it. I'm there, like wiggling their eyes, like, just take it.
Yeah.
And he turned to, I was like, really? It's like,
carpets are very forgiving.
Yeah, they come in every kind of color pattern that you could possibly want. They're big enough to give you that impressive feel. They're not thick, like I call them like slug type snakes, like, short tails or something.
Bloods
and stuff like that. I think ball pythons sort of have that look a little bit thinner though, but because they have that short tail and that same type of vibe body wise. They're going to be out. They don't hide. They're out perching. If you have a nice naturalistic enclosure, they only get better with age. I think sometimes that's sort of the opposite of how we deal with things. Like, when a ball python comes out of the egg, it's the best it's going to look, whereas when a carpet comes out of the egg, it's the worst it's going to look. You know what I mean? And you start to get an eye for seeing certain things that, like, oh, I'm going to hold this one back. I'm going to hold this one back, because I would hold all mine back. It's become called Burke the Clutch type of deal. But I would hold them back because I wanted to see how they would progress and see like what looks I would have and how it looked when they hatched and stuff like that. I don't know, man. They're just, to me, I think when I was like going through, like I said, I've worked with, I think it's like 36 different species of python.
Yeah.
And I've never not had a carpet python. Never not had them, because they're just that
they're
awesome
best
to me. I mean, if you're into something that you want to keep more like a colubrid, you got diamond pythons that, you want to keep cooler, and I mean, come on, they're beautiful. They're gorgeous.
Those things are a whole nother level of breathtaking.
I know a lot of people they fixate on the jungle. I get that, but like, don't sleep on a diamond python, man. They're like something else, next level beautiful. And you pretty much, you keep them like a colubrid.
I'm actually working on a really dope video focusing on diamond pythons, where I've enlisted the help of Brandon Wheeler.
Oh, so nice.
That's going to be pretty cool. Keep an eye out for that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice. But I don't know, man. They're fabulous. They're my favorite. I am biased to it, so I understand.
Well, like I said, like, I've always wanted a carpet python as a kid. But I've only ever had basically ball pythons. I had some short tails, and I had a green tree.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I was always drawn towards the things that had the bad reputation for being nippy, bitey. Sure. I don't know why, but they drew me to it. But all those snakes were hands down no issue. This was the very first snake to bite me, and holds the record for the most bites in one handling as well.
Right.
But he's the biggest puppy dog now. I mean, if you would have told me a year ago, I'd be doing a video holding him. He's up around my face, sitting on the brim of my hat, partially right. Like, I don't worry about him anymore, because he's learned me. I've learned him, and like, he's not afraid anymore. He doesn't have that defensive nature to him at the moment. I don't want to say it's not there, because I still, when I go in there, I still rub him with the hook. We built that whole system down so he knows what's going on and all that good stuff. But man, like, there is nothing out there in this market, in my opinion, as drop dead gorgeous as there's not one, normal that looks alike as a carpet or anything in the Morelia aspect. I'll just out in the Morelia species in general.
I think we're blessed in that way. Like the most basic type of, looks like you picked it up off of the eucalyptus mulch off the brush out back in WA or whatever. The most basic, normal, non-flashy animal, according to definition, could literally be as ornate as like an Oriental rug. Hence the the foundation of carpet python, that common name. I mean, they're that elaborate and complex, and like, you look at them from afar and you see something, and then you zoom in and you just find like 1 inch circle on the side panels, and you'll see like 12 different colors in what you thought was a brown snake, and it's just nuts.
it's crazy, and seeing them in the wild was really an eye opener as far as like we have this snapshot of what's in captivity as far as color and pattern goes, and when you see them in the wild, you realize that there's, oh my God, the from if we were able to have wild stock, right? Like you guys have wild stock, I would venture to say that we would give you a run for your money.
Oh, 100%. 100%. There's all the photos of the natural hypos and crazy speckles and stripes and red animals and patternless animals and the melanistic animals. Oh my God. I wouldn't keep anything else. Nothing.
Yeah, I have this. I think Riley knows about this. I just have been saving like pictures of wild carpets from all the way back from 2011. Wild carpets, captive carpets, all different types, all different things. Weird ones that pop out from Australia, from Europe, from the United States. Just like compiled like tons and tons and tons of like just pictures of these wild carpets, and none of them are alike.
Yeah.
None of them.
Yeah. There's nothing alike, even within the same clutch. Nothing.
Nope.
Yep.
Nothing.
I
think that's probably why we don't necessarily have to have the morph part of it, right? And maybe that explains better, like we were talking earlier.
Yeah, I think that brings it full circle. I think that we we just literally went through the whole journey of exploring the wild, the captive, the hobby, the origins, the import, lack thereof, the keeper versus breeder, all of this. But yeah, I think that summed it up perfectly. Yeah, we do have that was actually quite beautiful and poetic. I'm like trying to find the words to put it together, but no, it's really funny because that whole oops all normals thing just it showed us how different and similar we are in one phase, in one fell swoop, and then this conversation spurred out of it. It was just beautiful. I'm like reveling in this. I'm gonna really savor this one for a bit, because as much as I feel convicted in my beliefs and opinions, I learned so much tonight, and having spoken some of this out into existence really just puts it all together for me, even though like I didn't know I needed that. And it just, that was really interesting. That was solid.
I will say this, and I know I say this, I've said it a few times, but I do truly believe this live tonight with you guys and Nathan, if you watch this on the replay, dude, thank you for being on here as well. This live has, in my opinion, was the best conversation I've ever had on this channel.
Shit.
And that's one reason why I wanted to have you guys on, because I was hoping we would have had that this would flow the way it did, and it went exactly the way I had hoped. It actually massively exceeded my expectations as well. But this legit is probably the best conversation piece that I have ever had on this channel. Everybody in the chat, if you're at your keyboards and not working in your stateroom and listening, let me know what you guys all think. But honest to God, I knew this would be a slightly touchy topic to go on, but I also felt that it was a much needed topic to hit. And I just had great hopes that with, all the level-headed people on here tonight, that it would have went the way it did. So I do thank you guys for making tonight as awesome as it was. And Eric, you wrapped this up very, very well by just, that's, it did bring it full circle with that last statement, basically. I mean, that's one, with the carpets you don't need the morphs and all that stuff, because it's its own thing. And
I just watched my normal coastal female yawn. I have a normal coastal. I remember Owen shaming me into feeling like I was a loser because I didn't have a normal coastal. So I went and got one from Travis. Yeah.
Right,
I mean, it turns out she's also like bone white and potentially posset exantic from a Who's Your Daddy clutch. So there's some fun in it. But like, man, tonight was like the universe put all of this into play for a reason. Every visual I'm having, every thought I'm having, every conversation we're having, it feels like the universe just lined that up like Orion's belt or something. This is a trip for me right now. I'm having one of those like those sort of weird experiences almost on the same level of deja vu right now. So it's tripping me out a little bit. It's cool in the best way possible. So
that's freaking awesome.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stoked. I'm super stoked. You guys just got me all juiced for no reason on nothing whatsoever. I'm just like, I could stay up for the next 10 hours, clean snakes, edit videos, even though I worked all day, and it'd be cool.
Yeah, that's the passion, man.
It is. Yes. I feel you. Well, it's 11 o'clock here, Riley. I'm Eric. I don't know what your work schedule. I mean, I'm laid off, so, but I probably need to get my as well, just because of the new baby and stuff.
Oh, congrats, by the way, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Big time. Thank you. And I appreciate you guys working the schedule around my lame ass West Coast time zone.
even though I pulled a big giant oops.
I saw it at 8 and I was like, oh, because it's on my calendar at 9, and I was like, oh, I guess he changed it. Okay, so I just came at 8. I was like, and then it's like, oh shit,
just roll with it. It's all fluid.
And luckily, like I told Eric and Nathan, I was like, it's like, you know, everybody, we're all here but Riley. It's like, well, I'm just gonna let Riley know what's going on. Let him know I'm massively goofed. And I was on autopilot on this one, and you know, so I sent you the message. It's like, we'll just start it up and we'll see who shows up.
Yeah, I was closing up the shop.
Autopilot too.
I was getting in my car. I just locked up shop. I was like, oh, I gotta hurry home. Zoom. It was all good. It worked out.
I want to thank you guys, each and every one of you, for being on. Nathan, if you watch this replay, man, thank you for going almost 2 hours or an hour past what you said you were going to stay on.
Yeah, serious.
That's how I know Nathan was really having a great time as well with the live.
Loved his perspective too, by the way. Hats off to you. Thank you for sharing.
He grew up in my neighborhood, Riley. How about that?
That's freaking awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, see, we aren't that different after all. Look at that.
Right.
Full circle again.
Right.
Next week, everybody, as far as a live, I was supposed to have Brian of Altitude Exotics. I'm having an issue with getting a hold of him for pictures for thumbnails and all that stuff. So if I can't pull that one off, I'm going to find another guest. So just be warned, it might not be Brian of Altitude Exotics. It might be. I'll have to see. I'll make that call by like Tuesday. Also, I don't know what I'm going to have as far as this week's video. Next week's video, though, Wednesday video, will be the clutch cutting of clutch number 1. So super excited about that. It's not going to be anything super fantastic visual-wise. I mean, the best I can hit is a pastel, which for this combination will be absolutely over the moon because the pastel works so good with Desert Ghost and Exantic. So everything that is going to be G Exantic. So super, super happy with that one. And, you know, that pairing, even with the normals that have come out of each one of those female or the male anyway, female's new to the collection. So we'll see how her genes throw. But the male throws absolutely gorgeous animals. So even the normals, and this goes back to what we were just talking about during this whole thing. Love the normals, everybody, but the normals should be absolutely stunning as well, because the normal that he threw in another clutch was freaking drop dead gorgeous. I loved it. I actually hated to see it go, but I just didn't need it in the racks. So
there's nothing wrong with that. No shame, man. That's okay. It's okay to produce normals and let them go. It's okay.
Yes.
My whole spiel is sort of a loaded no normal thing. So you have to, if you're just catching this and you're like, what are they talking about? Go back and rewind and listen to the whole thing because it was awesome.
Yes, definitely. Everybody, make sure you guys, if you are just tuning in, go back and rewatch this. Probably the best, in my opinion, it was the best cast we've had to date. And I don't know if I could really top this one. Like, this is taking the channel in the direction that I want to take it. Just listening to like NPR and some other people, how they run their live streams. I'm trying to evolve this channel into more than how it started out as. And this was a great stepping stone into taking it in that direction. Eric, Riley, thank you so much, guys, for being on with me tonight. Hang on here 1 second. Everybody, go give these guys a follow. Subscribe to their YouTube channels. Riley's got his own killer channel. All of their links are in the description down below. Go check out NPR. You will not regret it. Morelia Python Radio. Great information. Awesome group of people to just, even if you're not active in the chats, they are a blast to listen to. Just, you'll see, not only will you learn a whole bunch of stuff, but you also get a good bit of laughs too. It's very entertaining on top of all the information you receive as well. Friday nights, don't miss it. Normally it's Friday nights. Every once in a while you guys skip it, but I was actually kind of sad that the other Friday, I guess is the Friday before Hamburg. I was like scrolling through. It's like, where is it? Like, it's not here. And I finally, it's like, I guess, it's like, well, maybe since Owen, I remember in the one live you had said Owen was going to be at Hamburg. So, well, maybe that's, why we're not doing it.
Yeah, I can't remember why. Who knows? I don't know.
It could also be because of the 12 other podcasts that Eric helps edit, produce, and launch, and some schedule conflicty things in there.
Every once in a while, yeah.
But everybody, thank you
100%.
so much for all the love and support. I greatly appreciate it. I will catch you guys next week. Like I said, guys, stay here 1 second. And everybody, I do want to say this. One, everybody, if you're not a member of USARK, definitely go check them out. And so, a membership, just numbers speak volume. USARK needs, even if you're shipping snakes, make that extra $1 donation. But definitely, everybody, if you're not a member of USARK, become a member, please. Numbers speak more than dollar signs. The bigger the voice we have, that's what counts. Legislatures and government they look at numbers more than monetary crap. So definitely go do that. And also, I don't know if anybody caught it. I'm sure by now it's all over Instagram, and I'm sure it's probably on some YouTube stuff as well. But everybody, keep Brian Barczyk and his family in your thoughts and prayers as well, just because he's going through a very, very tough time right now. He released a video today saying that he has pancreatic cancer. So just everybody give him thoughts and prayers on that. The man's beating the odds as far as being some of the very few people that can do this industry as a living. With his determination and mindset, I have no doubt that he can beat this thing as well. I think he said the success rate is 10%. I think he's going to nail it 10% right on the freaking head, because I don't think that man knows the word no. I think, he's just very driven, and I think, he can come out on the other side of this. But keep his family and himself in your thoughts and prayers, everybody. So that's going to be it for my preachiness. Thank you, everybody. And I'll catch you next week. Later.
See you.
See ya.